Good morning and welcome to the opening of the UNSW Education Festival. I'd like to start by introducing Ngunnawal traditional custodian Bradley Bell, who will begin our event with a welcome to country.
Yoma everybody. Yoma is how we say hello or g'day or hi in Ngunnawal, and it's also a gift to you all today. So throughout today, if you could use Yoma to say hello, hi or g'day, that'd be greatly appreciated. Burinda Golanga, Bradley Bell. My connections to country is through the Bell, Brown and Breyer families of the Ngunnawal tribe. Thank you for the invitation to provide the Ngunnawal welcome to country. It's truly an honour, and I want to wish everyone a Yardung, deadly day, and please treat everyone with kindness. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge all elders, past and present, and all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and our non-Aboriginal people here today. And in our language, Bulunjima, Murrinjima, Budhanjima. I acknowledge the Ngarigo to the south, the Walgaloo to the southwest, the Wiradjuri to the west, the Gundungurra to the north, and the Yuin to the east. And I acknowledge all First Nations people who have depended on country and our waterways. And I wish them Yindamara, respect. My ancestors lived on this country for many thousands of years. Our roots run deep in this earth, from the mountains to the life-giving rivers. For thousands of years, we have had strong elders leading Ngunnawal, looking after us, caring for us and managing their lives and their families' lives through some tough times, but also through some times of joy in the celebration of culture. It is important that all Australians understand the intrinsic and woven connections we, Aboriginal people, have to our land and waters, and how our cultural practices, cultural responsibilities, managing country and our waterways have cared for and nurtured our environment through thousands of generations. This cultural knowledge has been handed down through the generations and has supported us spiritually, socially and culturally. We, like all Australians, want to see healthy country, healthy waterways that we all can enjoy and value. Healthy country, healthy water gives you healthy people. So please keep this in mind throughout your education. For those of you that may not be aware, a welcome to country is provided across Australia at significant events, much like today's. Our Aboriginal tradition is that when a person or group enters the land of another country, they acknowledge that and seek permission from the people of that country they're entering. This ensures spiritual and cultural safety for those seeking permission, as well as showing cultural respect for the people of that country. We maintain this for two reasons. Firstly, out of the respect of the ancient living culture of this land. Secondly, as a part of sharing the history of this land as we move forward together, reconciliation in practice. The Ngunnawal people are the traditional custodians of Canberra and region. We, the Ngunnawal people, hosted gatherings for our neighbouring tribes to come together to deal with important business and for ceremonial occasions. You may not be aware, but Canberra in the Ngunnawal language means meeting place. And we've been doing some research into the origin of Canberra, and we've also found that Gambara is another origin of Canberra. Gambara in the Ngunnawal language is flower. Our Ngunnawal ancestors believed in the importance of people gathering together for the purpose of building relationships, knowledge, and to celebrate the gift of heritage and history. I would like to welcome you now in Ngunnawal language. Durawa nona Durawa Nonawal, Yangu Nolawiri Donimanyan, Ngunnawal Wari Darawa Wari, Darawa Nona Narambanya, Marambiji Malangarat Jinyilla, Gulambanin Ye Naragana Wali Yiri, Yaraban Inyan. And in the famous words of our Auntie Agnes Shea, Nagana Yarabai Yangu, which means you may leave your footprints here on the land of the Ngunnawal. Yomalandi Jean Yimaba. Thank you.
Thank you for welcoming us today, Bradley. With many of our colleagues joining us online, I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands you may be joining us from, the Bedegal, Gadigal and Ngunnawal people, and pay my respects to their elders past and present. I extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander colleagues with us today. Thank you for joining me today, and whether you're here in person or online, I warmly welcome you to the Canberra campus. The week-long UNSW Education Festival is still quite a new initiative, having started in 2021. And in this short time, it's already proven to be an invaluable initiative that informs and educates our greatest asset, which is you. The festival really is a week-long celebration, and it provides a platform to recognise our educators and share educational practices in collaborative and cross-disciplinary ways. Following its successes in 2021 and 2022, we're eager to share this year's Education Festival with its bursting at the seams activities. It's a unique opportunity for our faculties spread across multiple locations to come together as one education community with one goal: to inspire, challenge, and celebrate. This is an incredible depth and breadth of topics being offered this week during the festival. Latest developments in online learning, the role of AI in education, and assessment design are just some of the talks our colleagues will be presenting. There's much more on offer, so I encourage you to explore the Education Festival programme and engage with as many activities as you can. We are all here to foster learning and growth as an educational community. And community is at the heart of UNSW, and most certainly here in Canberra. And it's vital to who we are and also to our collective success. Together, we want to inspire, challenge, and celebrate what we do next in education at UNSW. Most of this week's festival events and activities will be held on the Kensington campus in Sydney, but I'm really pleased that the first and opening event is being hosted here in Canberra. With the development of the new UNSW Canberra City campus over the next few years, our presence in the capital will grow, as will the exciting opportunities for education and students across UNSW. Most of the festival events throughout the week are also offered as hybrid for those that can't make it in person. So I encourage you to log in and catch those presentations that interest you. Be open-minded to the opportunities and learnings that are presented by your colleagues across the whole of UNSW. The theme of this morning's group of presentations is Transformative Pedagogies and Technologies in Online Postgraduate Education. So to get this session started, I'll hand over to Diana Townsend, who will give us a rundown on how this morning's session will work. Thank you, and over to Diana.
Right, good morning everyone. Thank you, Emma, and welcome everyone to the first event of the 2023 UNSW Education Festival. My name is Diana Townsend and I am a Learning and Teaching Development Leader at UNSW Canberra. It is my great pleasure to start off this week by leading us on a transformative educational journey. The past couple of years highlighted the opportunities and obstacles that online education offers, especially for our postgraduate students. We are incredibly fortunate to have 12 dynamic presentations today that will inspire, challenge, and revolutionise our understanding of online education. Each presentation will go for around 10 minutes, followed by a short 5-minute Q&A session. I'm sorry for that. I know that everyone will probably want to spend a little bit longer, but that's all we can afford. So we will have presenters here in Canberra and others joining online as well, just like our postgraduate students. For those of you joining us in Canberra, and sorry to those online, we have some delicious food right at the back of the room. So feel free to jump up and down throughout the day and fuel your energy. And bathrooms are available 1 floor down in this building. It is a little bit of a choose your own adventure location, so just try to get on a journey with us. For everyone online, Bhavani, who has been my rock this week and every week before that, will be monitoring the chat. So please be sure to ask questions so we can have a very rich discussion going on. Remember, if you happen to be in Sydney and you are in Kensington, on campus and currently hiding in your office, this session is a live streaming from the Teaching Commons. So go and please join your colleagues there and enjoy. All right, without further ado, it is time to hand over to our wonderful presenters. Our first cab of the rank is Dr. Wiley Breckenridge, sharing his insights on the role of the teacher presence for student engagement in UNSW Online. I will hand over to Wiley.
Thanks, Diana, and good morning, everybody. So I work for UNSW Online. We've been operating since the middle of 2019, and since then we've had about 4,300 students, 350 course offerings, 23,000 course enrolments, and 200 teachers. We offer a range of programs from analytics through to management, with more to come. And in most of those, students can do a grad cert, a grad dip, or a master's. Our programs are fully online, our mission being to offer world-class education anywhere, anytime. So we're targeting people whose lifestyles preclude them from doing a more traditional on-campus program. We've been reaching busy people, so here are their ages. As you can see, many of them are in their 30s and 40s, and many of those are working full-time, raising a family, trying to stay healthy and so forth. So they're exactly the kind of people that we're trying to reach. They live anywhere in Australia, mostly in New South Wales, but also in the other states and territories. And they live anywhere overseas, from China and Hong Kong at the top to Nigeria and Peru down the bottom there. So we're doing pretty well on the anywhere part of our mission. But the anytime part is much more challenging. So our courses are not offered anytime. We have 6 hexamesters, and a course is typically offered once or twice a year. These shaded boxes show an example of one of our courses and when it's been offered over the last few years. Nevertheless, our courses should be completable any time, by which I mean everything should be available at the start of the course, and students should be able to work through the course pretty much at their own pace. That means that there are some things that our teachers should not be doing. So they should not be deciding what to cover in the course, and they should not be creating any necessary materials. Which, of course, raises the question, what, if anything, does that leave for our teachers to do? It would help with our the anytime part of our mission, if the answer were not much, because then we might be able to offer our courses more frequently, perhaps even continuously. But what we've been learning over the years is that to achieve the world-class education part of our mission, the answer is probably quite a lot. which is perhaps illustrated by this chart. So the top line here shows the combined teacher satisfaction over the HEC semesters. The bottom line shows the combined course satisfaction. And as you can see, they wiggle up and down together. Now, I say perhaps because, as interesting as this is, it's just a correlation. Oops. So what we've been discovering is that there seem to be 10 key things that we need our teachers to be doing if we hope to offer our students a world-class education. So I'll go through them from probably the more obvious ones through to the less obvious ones. So number one is marking. Now we can do a certain amount of this automatically, but a lot of it requires expert human judgment. Number two, responding, by which I mean answering questions that students ask on the forum, processing requests for special consideration, and so forth. Number three, steering, by which I mean keeping an eye out for mistakes that students make, misunderstandings that they develop, and acting accordingly. A lot of this happens in the process of giving feedback via learning activities and assessment tasks. Number four is patching, by which I mean fixing up any mistakes that are uncovered as the courses proceed. Number five is catalysing, by which I mean encouraging students to think a bit more deeply about the content and encouraging them to interact with each other. And that could be, for example, by giving them some provocative questions to think about. It could be encouraging them to answer each other's questions on the forums, or it could be getting them together in webinars. Number six is nurturing, by which I mean looking after the students who are a bit less confident, letting them know that yes, you can do it and that there's plenty of support available to help you. Number seven is inspiring, by which I mean for our teachers who have relevant workplace experience, talking to our students about their experiences. Students find that quite inspiring. Number eight, connecting, similar, but by this I mean teachers getting other people who have had relevant workplace experience to talk with our students and share their experiences, but also to meet our students and for our students to meet them. So one of the big reasons that students choose to study with us is to make those sorts of connections. Number nine is stock taking, by which I mean keeping an eye on what's been working in the course and what's not been working so that we can make improvements for next time. And finally, number 10 is learning. This one's a little less direct. So we need good course developers. A good course developer needs two kinds of expertise. The subject matter expertise, and then there's also what it's like to learn the subject matter expertise. They're separate things. One great way to develop both of those expertises is by teaching. So by having people teaching our courses, we're helping to develop a stock of potentially good course developers, which will ultimately help our students. Okay, so they're the 10 things. What we've been learning over the years is that teachers have an important role to play. We need to make sure that course design is such that our teachers are free to focus on these 10 things. And we also need to make sure that they understand exactly what their role is in these fully online courses and how it might differ from what they're used to. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Wiley. That's well and truly within time. I may have been very scary in my communication.
You were.
No one in the room can believe it. Thank you, Wiley. Are there any questions? Because we do have time for 5 minutes for sure. Any questions for Wiley? All right, we got Lily. Let me get the microphone to you.
Thank you for the presentation. I'm curious, you put that in order, and the first one is marking. I totally agree with that. So are you doing marking by yourself or you have marking team? If you have a team, how do you manage it?
That varies quite a bit. It depends on the number of students in the course. So sometimes we have one teacher who does all the marking. Sometimes we have a huge number of students, and so teachers do some of the marking, plus marking specialists are brought in to do some of the marking as well. So it's a whole variety of methods.
All right.
Yep.
Any other questions? David looks like he's itching for a question.
Hi, Wiley. David Bond here.
G'day, David.
Just a question around your last comment in relation to learning. They're talking about the expertises around the subject, around the teaching, and then the subject matter development, and that building a stock of people with that expertise to work in the online space, being able to teach in it is really important. Not everyone, given some of the program rollouts, not everyone has had the opportunity to teach in this particular environment before they're involved in a course build. Just interested in your thoughts on what can be done, or yeah, just your thoughts on how to improve or how to sort of help them along that process if they haven't been involved in teaching an online course.
Yeah, right. But they've been involved in teaching of other sorts, you mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but just in this particular context.
Yeah, so I suppose it's a matter of us, the very last thing I said, where we've got to make sure they understand exactly, oh, sorry, you're talking about course developers, not teachers. Yeah. Yeah, it's a good question, David, and we do some of that, like the Key Path gang, you know, they do some training of the course developers, but we probably need to do more of that. And also, I'm not too sure that we spend enough time letting the course developers know exactly what we expect the teachers to be doing, and that makes a big difference to what sort of development that they do. So does that answer your question, Dave?
Hang on, we will return the microphone. And I just realized this is like a finder. Where's Wally? Are you trying to look in the audience?
I think I'm off to the side, so you can't actually see me.
No, I can't. I can sense you that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it does. It does. So thank you.
Yeah.
I'll get my steps today for sure. We have one more question from online, and I think maybe Gavin had a question at the back, so maybe two more questions for you all.
Thanks, Wiley. So from Anita online, we've got, have you communicated these 10 roles to all teachers in UNSW online? If so, how have they responded?
Well, we kind of have, but not as well as we probably should have. And it was really only in preparing for this talk that I sort of like more thoroughly went through and analysed massive amounts of stuff and sort of like picked out these 10 things. So we need to have more discussions about this within UNSW online and just work out exactly whether these are the 10 things that we want to communicate. But this would be our starting point, I think.
Fantastic. All right, one last question from the audience.
Thanks, Wiley. Gavin Mount. I'm curious as to the prioritisation of these 10. Personally, I would have put connecting much higher in my own teaching practice and pedagogy. You said you've just started answering this, I think. Did you draw these 10 from data from the student feedback, or is it from consultations with your team, or how did you come up with the 10, and are they in order?
Yeah, right. So no, they're definitely not in order of importance. They're in order of more obvious through to less obvious. That was the idea there. And what was the other thing that you asked? It was.
Did you get the source of information from students? Yeah.
Yeah. So various places. So so what the students say in their My Experience reports. What they say via various other channels. So there are a variety of channels that we get information from students. What the teachers have been telling us, what the course developers have been telling us. some of us at UNSW Online also do some teaching ourselves, so that's another source of experience, like being in the courses themselves. And just sort of like general common sense, if there is such a thing, but nothing fancy like any controlled experiments or anything like that.
All right. I think we'll finish off there. I'm very grateful that you have finished within the time allocated and grateful for your time today. Thank you, Wiley.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right. Our next presenter is Jim Rooney. I do know Jim's name, however, I don't have a whole title memorized yet. So Jim will be presenting today on immersive technology, backward course design, and the value of asking different questions. Let us just give us a sec so we can deal with some technical issues. Can we reopen it? All right, we might just pause just for 1 second, just so we can get rid of that.
Those online, can we confirm that we're able to?
Can you guys see the slides? Can I just confirm that? Should be able to.
Yep.
Yep. Thank you. All right, over to you, Jim. Thank you so much. Did you want the lapel or handheld? All right.
Thanks. Thanks, Diana and Bhavani. So my name is Jim Rooney. I'm an associate professor at the School of Business down here in Canberra. And given that this is largely a technology presentation, that's not a great start, but we'll get through it. I've got plenty of backups around here, so we'll get there. So what I'm going to talk to you about is a course that I run in strategic logistics. And it's part of a Master of Business Logistics Management, and it's a core course within that degree. The student cohort are almost entirely military, and they're almost entirely posted somewhere else around the world other than Australia. So for instance, last year I had a student who was a wing commander, and she was the military attaché to the embassy in Laos. So this course is therefore online, and we try to use some of the technologies to help the students engage with the topic and to learn more about strategic logistics. Now, just to give you a little bit more background, and I, like Wiley, are extremely scared to go over time, so, right, or move. So, so I'll keep this short because the vast majority of this is actually a demo of the technology. So this is a story about working with various groups within University of New South Wales, not just in Canberra, but Kensington as well. So we've worked with the TELS group. So that's why in the early slide you had a list of people. We've also worked with the media group here and the media group in Kensington, and above all, the immersive technology group. But before I get to that, the early stages of this was around the Course Design Institute course, which I attended last year, I think it was. And so what that inspired is this idea of looking to what you want the students to achieve beyond doing the education. So what do you want them to know in 5 years' time? And so the whole workshop involves a number of techniques, but it talks about thinking it from a student-centred point of view. And so you design backwards from there. So when I did that on this particular course, What I looked at is the need to be able to transition the students or get the students thinking beyond the day-to-day logistics management, because the other thing about the student cohort, 3/4 of them are logistics operations people. And so they don't deal with logistics strategy. They don't talk about, you know, how the logistics strategy links with the organisational strategy. So this course is to give them some insights. And so this is where working with TELS here and the Immersive Technology Group in Kensington, we're able to say, okay, one of the things we can do is to involve the students in simulation. So what this simulation largely is about is to design, it's part of the course to get the students to think about how you design a logistics strategy in a particular case study. So one of the case studies the students choose is the race to the South Pole. So this is the Scott Edmondson competition to get to the South Pole in 1912. So the idea is behind it, you've got to understand what they were trying to achieve and then how you translate that into a logistics strategy. And so what the simulation allows them to do is to understand the organisational strategy and then translate that into things like where do they put the supply depots on the way to the South Pole? What sort of transport do they use? These are all strategic decisions. And so the idea is to use a fairly simple case study where there's lots of information around. So the reason this is the start of a journey, not the end of the journey, is that we figure if we can give the students the chance to play around in a safe environment with different logistics strategy and see what the end result is, then that'll encourage them to look at other case studies like this. So we've only done it for one of the case studies we use, and we use it throughout the whole course. Now, I am going to get to the, here we go. I'm going to get to the, it's a demonstration of the simulation. So it's done by the lead designer, a guy named Ash Hall, and he's going to take you through both the evolution of this, because we've done it over 2 semesters, as well as some of the considerations that we've taken into account. Bearing in mind, the end objective is to give the students some opportunity to play around with logistics strategy. Now, the particular aspect of this we're looking at is aligning the logistics strategy with the business strategy, organisational strategy. So, here's hoping. Yep. Yes, get the expert to do it, yeah. That's worked for me so far in this simulation, so why shouldn't it work now? It's the link's not so. Okay, so here's Ash, the lead designer of this sim, representing the whole team.
Of course, a session on technology has to have all the technological problems, doesn't it? Of course. It was working.
Just bear with us. We've tested it about 20 times and it worked every time. Try refreshing the page.
Apologies.
I'm going to grab the next page.
Any
and the media and immersive technologies. My name is Ashley Hall. I'm an
On your end, please. Yep.
specialist with the media and immersive technology team at UNSW Kensington. To celebrate the Education Festival, I'm excited to run a demonstration of the current state of our project, as well as provide some insights into the development process. The Race to the South Pole simulation began development in early 2022 with the goal of enhancing learning and understanding in the Strategic Logistics Management course. The project is a collaboration between a number of UNSW faculties, including education developers and educators in Canberra, and the Media and Immersive Technologies team in Sydney. Throughout key stages of development, we have worked closely with student partners through the Work Integrated Learning program. These student partnerships have made significant contributions to the core development, as well as assisting with the UI/UX design process. As accessibility was a key requirement, we began development using the Unity 3D engine, as this enabled a degree of flexibility to build not only for our target platform, web browsers, but also other platforms such as VR or mobile, should the demand or design require it. Before we jump into the experience, I want to quickly highlight how we got to the current state of our project by demonstrating version 1, developed last year. Early on in the project, we began to explore how the overall experience should operate. We knew the project had the potential to be quite complex, so we strived to build a prototype to gauge effectiveness and collect feedback from users. On completion of version 1, we were left with a functional prototype that enabled students to design an expedition team comprising of various types of crew members and transportation. The user was responsible for managing their funds to organize the team, as well as strategize how to handle the logistics, such as how much food they should carry and commissioning supply depots to be placed along the route ahead of time. Once the planning was complete, users could then embark on their race to the South Pole, where they would be confronted with various events, weather and terrain, all while trying to stay on top of the crew's hunger, health and morale. It was very difficult to survive. From this initial version, we collected feedback and gameplay data where we discovered some key areas for improvement. There was simply too much text and numbers on screen to keep track of, which made onboarding new users time-consuming. There was not enough connection to the team. Crew members were faceless and only defined by their role, so losing someone was not all that impactful. The hazardous nature of the expedition wasn't conveyed all that well either, and was not very immersive. So with those notes in mind, we began working on version 2. I would like to mention that this is still very much a work in progress, so please excuse the odd out-of-place graphic or occasional malfunction. Moving into the sim, we still have the preparation phase like version 1, however we've done away with a bunch of text and numbers and opted to keep things illustrated. I'll go ahead and recruit some crew to accompany me on the expedition. Straight away you'll notice that the crew are now unique individuals, each of whom bring their own set of skills and traits. I'll pick up some sleds to help move my team and cargo. For this run, I'll opt for a number of dog sled teams. Next, I'll add some supplies to be loaded onto the sleds, and then commission some supply depots to be established along our route. And as you add these supply depots, they'll be shown on the map on the left. You'll note the addition of a timeline on the bottom of the screen. The red line indicates our expedition's starting date. It takes time setting up all these supply depots, so as a user, I need to weigh the benefits of guaranteed supplies against the requirements and objectives of our organization. In this case, we are tasked with being the first to reach the South Pole. I might opt to scrap a depot or two so I can depart earlier. This is a race to the South Pole after all, and our Norwegian counterparts aren't going to wait for the English collective to be ready. In the expedition phase, we opted to bring the user closer to the ground to really feel the severity of the environment and keep the user tied to their team. At the end of every day, we set up camp and we will be responsible for keeping tabs on our crew and issuing directives such as size of rations, how many hours to travel the next day, and how fast we should travel. Along the way, we will encounter events, some fun, others disastrous. The choices offered to us will change based on the decisions we made in the preparation phase, as well as on the journey. Some crew can provide unique solutions, while others may prove detrimental to the cause. It's important to stay on top of supplies to ensure a safe return while also not overloading your sleds and slowing them down. This is where the supply depots come in handy. They effectively act as banks where I can deposit or withdraw supplies, enabling users to make strategic decisions to potentially benefit them on the return journey. With proper planning and management of resources, you should find yourself arriving at the South Pole. This is a moment to celebrate, assuming you were the first to arrive. And of course, you still need to make it back, which can prove to be difficult with dwindling supplies and a weary crew. In the Antarctic, defeat can sneak up on you and very quickly snowball out of control if you don't pay attention. It's life or death, but that's the beauty of simulation tools like this. If you fail, you can just learn from your mistakes and try again. In future updates, we hope to accomplish a number of enhancements to really round off the edges and add to the volume of content exposed to users in the expedition phase. Some of these goals may include finalizing the visuals and interface design, authoring a larger pool of events that users can encounter while on expedition, more varied crew members, sleds, and assets to choose from, extending characteristics of crew members so their personalities play a larger role in the expedition, and potentially adding the option to play as other contestants in the race, such as the Norwegians led by Roald Amundsen. Lastly, I would like to thank the following people for their invaluable contributions to the project. If you have an idea or an interesting problem that you think could be solved through the use of simulations and immersive technologies, please do not hesitate to get in touch. The Media and Immersive Technologies team is equipped to assist you with such projects, and it all starts with a conversation. Thank you again, and I hope you enjoyed my presentation.
Okay, if I'm looking scared, it's because I've run out of time. Sorry. I will get to questions because there were a few. So hopefully you got a sense of the teamwork involved in this. I saw some questions about assessments. I'm happy to answer those as we go. One, if you want to see a demonstration of it, one of the questions online was answered by the team lead. I suppose Ash was the developer lead. Graham, with details about what software environment we used here. And so that's an indication of how we went through the whole process. So where someone didn't have knowledge, someone else would cover it. And the other thing I forgot to mention is the team also used work experience students from IT. So all round big effort. So the last thing I'll leave you with, because we have to give a student perspective on this, otherwise what's the point in doing it? So that's a quote I pulled out from this. The three things I'd point out to you. Firstly, they recognised that it was a work in progress because we told them, the first year it was a beta thing, and they acknowledged that. It wasn't something that annoyed the hell out of them. So they saw the ability to use this for their assessments, and I will get onto that in a sec. Secondly, they appreciate the team effort involved in this. They realise that this is not something you just dream up in 5 seconds and you go from there. And thirdly, if anything from that last comment, they really got involved in it. Not every student did, but the ones that did almost took this stuff personally. They had to get to the South Pole and back, just to prove they could do it. And all the way along, they're learning a bit more about logistics strategy and the need to align with the organisation. So I'm going to stop there so we can cover questions. Otherwise, you'll never see me again.
All right, maybe what we'll do is I'll get Bhavani to set up the Nishi with their presentation, because we're going to have to shift out of Jim's special setup that we have here. And while we're doing this, we'll attend to Jim's questions, which there are many. So one of the questions online is, can you comment on the budget for development, prototyping and testing?
Yes, okay, so this is a good thing. I don't know is the short answer. but Graham does because it was his budget. So for us, within the University of New South Wales, we weren't charged anything for this. But of course, there's a cost associated with it. So we might have to get back to you unless Graham wants to just have a couple of comments about that. But if not, we'll get back to you as part of the feedback on the festival.
Did you want to comment on how students are assessed?
Yes. Okay. So in this course, there's 3 assessments. There's a bibliographic review. There's a logistics case study analysis of what the logistics strategy problems are, and then the final assessment is, well, what do you do about it? And there's 2 case studies they've got, plus also they can use their own organisation. And one of the case studies they have is this. So how this is used is to help them develop some analysis. So that's the second assessment, but also to help them look at solutions. So one of the solutions could be, for instance, you have less or more supply depots along the way. Therefore, if you have more, you wait later and you go from there. Or the mode of transport. So I could spend a lot of time talking about the decisions in real time that Scott made, but we don't have time. So yes, it's incorporated into that, and it's deliberately that way. So part of our development is as we get this to a point where it becomes totally immersive, we'll look at other case studies as well.
All right, maybe if there is a question in the room, we'll go to one question in the room. But the chat definitely has a lot of interest. There are a lot of gamers getting very excited.
That's good. We were too.
So you definitely, maybe if you get a chance, maybe have a look at the chat and if you can respond to any of the questions in the chat. Any burning questions in the room? Jim, are you going to be around today?
I will be today. I'm just in another meeting. That's all.
Okay. So maybe at the end of the day, if you're around, maybe people can ask questions as well.
No worries.
All right.
Thanks, Tiana.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, that brings us to our next group of presenters. So I will try not to make a fool of myself by trying to pronounce Danushi's last name. So I will just very kindly seek apology for that. So we will have Danushi, Emma, Emily and Bronwyn presenting next. They'll be presenting on the practical medical genomics topic. So design, development, delivery of an engaging online short course for professional development. Thank you very much. Over to you, Danushi.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So thank you for the opportunity to talk today about the pedagogical approach that we've taken in designing and delivering a postgraduate short course, and also some preliminary results from our evaluation of its effectiveness. So to give you some context, genomic medicine is a rapidly developing field and is increasingly integrated into all stages of healthcare delivery. And there is a wide range of studies that have highlighted the need for upskilling the broad range of healthcare professionals, such as neurologists, midwives, and pharmacists, as well as professionals working in labs and research settings. And this training is required to ensure safe and effective delivery of genomic medicine. So this is really what motivated us to design our short course for any and all healthcare and science professionals interested in practicing genomic medicine. We have now offered this course 4 times to date, and we have capped each cohort at 30 participants so we can provide a more personalized experience. And we've been particularly encouraged that the course aligns so well with the state and national strategic priorities that UNSW Health has sponsored 25 participants in each of our cohorts. In today's talk, we will specifically focus on the design and delivery of learning and assessment that enables competency-based learning to an audience that have varying levels of experience, have different professional roles, and therefore different expectations. We will also discuss how we have embedded evaluation into the course design to allow us to iteratively improve the course and also demonstrate the course impact to our funding bodies. So this is our core team, and we contribute to the course in different but complementary ways. Emma and Emily are the conveners, who are both clinical geneticists as well as researchers and are also the content matter experts. Bronwyn and I worked on the design and development aspects of learning and assessment tasks as well as the evaluation. We also collaborate with a team of amazing genetic counselors and multidisciplinary genomic champions who we call upon to share their broad expertise with our participants. In terms of content, the course covers all aspects of the process of providing genomic healthcare, and because we have a diverse set of professional learners, our assessment process is kept quite broad, but still allows for application of knowledge in the context of their current roles. Also, just want to highlight that the competency-based learning underpins our course design, and so we align all our teaching and assessment to competencies established both nationally as well as internationally. I'll now pass on to Emma to talk to you about the delivery of the course.
Thanks, Danushi. So the course is 40 hours of learning, which is split between synchronous and asynchronous sessions. We start off with a synchronous kickoff session where we introduce the program and highlight the key learning objectives. This session is also a great opportunity to introduce ourselves and the participants and their interests, which helps build a community of learning practice, which we've found can extend beyond the course. The participants are encouraged to complete a pre-course survey, which outlines the different steps in genomic healthcare and allows them to identify areas that are most relevant to their current or future roles, and also helps them set goals for what they want to get out of the course. And this also helps us as the conveners tailor our teaching to be most relevant to this course, to this cohort. And then the participants launch into their self-paced online modules, which include knowledge check questions and feedback. The first module covers foundational core genomic concepts, for example, genomic diagnostic technologies, and the second one focuses more on practical and clinical applications, including ethical, legal, and social implications. For example, how to support people with lower health literacy make shared decisions about genomic tests. As the learners have got a range of backgrounds and expertise, some need more foundational knowledge than others. They're then best set up for our first synchronous live session, which is held via Zoom and follows the patient journey through genomic healthcare. As it's a whole day, we make it as interactive as possible, including facilitated breakout rooms, case-based discussions, and role plays. And this is where we bring in our range of genomic champions and genetic counsellors, which we found is incredibly helpful because people can ask them tailored questions, but also they get modelled an example of a genomic champion, which is someone who's actually doing a great job of integrating genomics into their healthcare practice. We also share additional learning resources for each session for those who want to dig deeper. And we use this first day to set up for the group projects, which I'll hand over to Emily to tell you about now.
So thanks, Emma and Danushi. Our goal for the group project is to provide an opportunity for our participants to apply what they've learned to real life scenarios and also to network and build connections. Participants choose their own scenario and group according to their own interests or roles, or we provide a mock scenario. And they can either choose to work with a group that includes participants with similar roles or interests, or with different roles and interests, and therefore different perspectives and expertise. Around 5 days after our first synchronous live session, the participants have an opportunity of taking part in an evening drop-in session with Emma and myself to talk through their group project plans and to make sure they're all on track and to receive feedback if needed. For the second synchronous live session, our groups present their plans, solutions and strategies to the class, followed by a short discussion. Our students learn from each other, they share their resources and receive feedback from conveners contextualising their learning. The four of us also learn a great deal from our participants during this session, so it's definitely a two-way street. At the end of this second synchronous live session, we provide our participants with the post-course survey. This is a series of questions that guide them through the process of providing genomic care and prompt them also to reflect on what they've learned and also think about the next steps in their individual genomic journey. This sets them up really well for the individual assessment, which involves developing a self-development action plan to solve a genomics-related issue, policy or procedure that they've identified in their current role. During the individual assessment marking process, Conveners provide constructive feedback on that participant's proposed strategy. And from a convener's perspective, from Emma and my perspective, the design of the individual assessment provides us with the opportunity of assessing each participant against their individual learning goals, and again allows us to cater for a really diverse audience. And we've had some absolutely incredible individual assessment submissions from our participants. I'll now pass on to Bronwyn to talk to you about the evaluation strategy.
Thanks, Emily. So as you've heard, one of the themes in the course is integrating with authentic or real life practice. For our evaluation strategy, we also wanted to use a behaviour change model that's commonly used in healthcare. In this case, the COM-B, or the Capability, Opportunity, Motivation Behaviour Model. The course is grounded in implementation because we asked for our participants to take their learnings back and apply it directly in the workplace. We're also really keen that we make sure that what we create, it can be compared with other genomics education work. So there are 3 data collection points, 2 of which are surveys that were adapted from national needs assessments of non-genetics physicians. And the 3rd data collection point is the final development, self-development action plan. All 3 data sets are analysed using the COM-B framework. So what have we found so far? Well, these are just a couple of items from the survey. Overall, we've seen success in increasing preparedness for practicing genomic medicine and competence. To keep the talk within time, we haven't shown other data points from the surveys, but we also measure changes in participants' perceived competence and confidence across different roles and genomic capability. We do see major increases in confidence around the 4 learning outcomes, with participants overall reporting that they feel much more confident in approaching genetics in their workplace. The course does particularly well in improving competence and confidence in communication and finding resources. This is essential in a rapidly developing field. It's also important to notice that this is a trend, and not everyone has improved to the same level, and that's expected given the different roles and the goals of the individuals. So using the COM-B model to analyse our participants' self-development action plan has provided more insights into our individual aspirations and enablers and barriers in their own settings. So we found that participants felt enabled to find reliable sources for information to guide their practice and to participate in key processes for delivering genomic medicine, such as multidisciplinary team meetings. Participants identified opportunities to lead in their workplace and also to address specific gaps in their contexts, and they expressed motivation to shift standards in their workplace. Primary barrier is that the participants realised that they still needed further learning and experience to practice genomics medicine effectively, and the guidelines are still lacking, although they recognise that they could be involved in developing them. So we're still in the process of analysing these in more detail, and we have a cohort currently running. So in conclusion, this course meets learning objectives and improves perceived preparedness. We're increasing awareness while empowering others to apply genomics in a practical way and providing a foundation for a community of learners. However, we have participants achieving different levels of competency, and so more training and opportunities to apply what is learned in courses like this one will be necessary to be able to enable genomics medicine to be effectively practiced in participants' local health contexts. So importantly, impactful course, a key component, but it's only one part of participants' learning journey. Thank you.
I love how the audience is helping me out with this. Thank you. Thank you so much to all 4 of you for that wonderful presentation. Any questions from the audience or people online? I haven't seen a question pop up yet online. Any questions? Don't be shy. I will wait patiently. All right, there we go. I see. I am scary. Here we go.
Thank you, Gavin, Matt, again, just because no one else asked. It's a wonderful, wonderful design. It's absolutely lovely to see the design presented the way you have. And I was sitting with a colleague here, and I was a bit envious that you have 4 people involved in this project with a cap of 30 students, and you have another 10 people coming in on board. The resourcing of this is quite significant. How did you, I think the way you've done it is because you have a national strategic funding stream. But can you do this on your own as one person at scale?
Danushi, or
yeah, I'm just waiting. So just to be clear, the funding at the moment is, so this is a short course, so it's postgraduate for professionals, and so we originally designed it that most healthcare professionals have some degree of funding that they can use for continuing professional development. As a doctor, I can say it's not great that doctors have a lot more funding for that than other health professionals. But we did want to really make sure that we align to those state and national priorities, which is why the short course team and ourselves have had those discussions with ministry. And I must say, the short course team, you know, is behind and being supportive of all of this and helping with the negotiations. So the cost is $2,000 per person. Am I right? Team, yeah. So we do also have people that come in and pay for that privately. So that's not unusual for a professional health course. In fact, it's actually quite competitive given how many hours of learning there are. And I would say personally, I think the combination of having people like Danushi who've got that expert, lens on how to, and Bronwyn, how to design courses that are really engaging, and then bringing in myself and Em as sort of content matter experts. I really don't think you could do this as one person. I think it really takes a team. And just to highlight, this was over a year in the planning. So it was very, very careful planning and consultation with multiple stakeholders to get to the course how you see it.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. We have just one more question from David.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation, and sort of coming off the previous question, but with a slightly different lens to it. Quite a large team, and I agree with your comment just there around the importance of having a team involved in this. But you know, a core team of 4 and then a broader team of an additional 10. That's a lot of people to be sort of managing. What were what challenges or a key challenge did you have with that in terms of building out and working on the course? Because I'm sure there would have been some.
So I think I've only just clocked what you mean by the extra 10. You mean the genomic champions and the genetic counsellors. So they're not, it's not, we have the same core team of genetic counsellors that would work with us on each of the ones, and we very much develop it for them, get their feedback, but they're not having to design that bit from scratch. And then the genomic champions were bringing, it's 2 times when they come in on that synchronous day. And again, we're very much working with them to help prepare them. And then we do give them recognition and thanks from the funding that we receive back. So it's not that they're having to design their bits from scratch. We're really helping them to do that. Does that help?
It is resource intensive.
It does, and I think Bronwyn's comment there probably gets it a little bit as well.
Yeah, if I could just add to that, I mean, it is resource intensive, and I think blended learning is the gold standard in this area, particularly. Case-based does not design itself. We have taken a lot of the heavy lifting with the online modules, but actually the core team of clinical geneticists, genetic counsellors and educators is really important at this stage when things are changing so much. We may be able to think of another model in future, but we certainly needed to have this at the moment.
Awesome.
Can I also add, some of our broader group are also conjoint academics affiliated with UNSW, so it also contributes to their teaching. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation, and thank you for such an in-depth answers to all of our questions. So in a spirit of time, I suppose we'll push on. We have a next presentation is in person. So we'll have Lily Quayle present on the Enhancing Education, the Impact of Postgraduate Coursework One-on-One Seminars. I will hand over to Lily.
Hello everyone, I'm Lily Chow. I'm the Senior Lecturer from School of Engineering Technology. I'm teaching space engineering. and I'm also the postgraduate assessment coordinator. So today I'm just to talk about the work I've done as a PAC assessment coordinator. It's very simple. It's just a bunch of seminar series. And till now, we have organized 16 seminars. So this seminar has two streams, a bunch of that for educators, and the majority is for students. So I'm taking this role like three years ago. So since that, I created this brand new teaching and learning resources. So why and how? Very simple. We want a student to be happy, increase their experience, and hope they give us good feedback in my experience report, and our head of school teaching can receive less complaints. That's the simple why. And how? Because all the students are online. Seminar is, in my mind, is the only way I can choose. And the students are very busy. Almost the students in our school majority is from defense, and they're quite busy. And okay, let's solve all the problems, give you informed in only 1 hour seminar. So that is how. As an engineer, my mind can be very simple. The leadership, I just interpret as problem solve. Let's solve problems. The first seminar is, I'm the speaker for educators. Just a little bit of introduction about the assessment coordinator. Assessment coordinator, the biggest task is to assess all the course outlines and submit the course outlines to SAS on time. The course outline is a very important document. You can consider that's a contract signed between us and the students. So I assess that. And I run it in the first semester, I found a lot of problems. So I thought, okay, that's not hard to submit online. We just put everything identified, the problems in the course, in the seminar. I tell them what is the good practice. And what's the result? After this seminar, all the semester I run, every time I can collect and check all the course lines and submit to SAS on time. That's a big achievement. So later on, okay. In a semester, and I did it too for students. Why? Still very simple. I'm also convener for 2 core courses. And I find one of the things I feel very pity is students write essay, they have brilliant opinions, but we still cannot give them high marks because according to rubrics, they should write in the academic way, but they don't know how to write in the academic way. So, and I found, in our faculty, we have already a bunch of people like learning and teaching all unit. They teach us how to write in academic way. That's what they need. So I contact them to invite one speaker, Erin. The first one can be a little difficult because we spend more than 1 month to coordinate, find our first speaker to teach students how to write academic way, in academic writing, so they don't demerit. It's a wrong talk. The first one is to talk about how to write short essays. And during the seminar, we got feedback that students say, okay, can you talk about how to write the final assessment, which usually is like more than 10 pages big assignment. So we run the second seminar. And then we find more speakers because we can dig out more problems from student feedback. In the 2012 semester 1, we run 3 seminars for students. Problem is that we find the students just use Google Scholar to find some papers which is not published in high journals as their reference. But we hope students, when they write their essays, to use trustable, high-quality papers as a reference. So we have Lisa from the library to teach students how to search for good quality scholar evidence from our library. Just simply let you know that Google Scholar is fine, but use library as the resources we offer to you, and don't waste that. And then students ask, all right, all the reference, how can I use EndNote to do that? Students don't know the EndNote. So then we quickly think, okay, let's run another seminar. And Lisa invited Aaron together to give a seminar called Structuring Reference, use EndNote. And then we found another problem. Students don't know who should I talk to. Because we have course conveners, we have lecturers, we have tutors, we have head of school for teachings, we have DPGS, director. And the students are lost in the forest. Who should I talk to if I have questions? And always in mind that our students, they have daytime job. And they get frustrated or angry, which will result later in your my experience report. So easy. Frank was head of school teaching in that time, so me and Frank organized a seminar to tell students who should you talk to if you met up some questions. Then next, we found more problems for educators. Not educators are experienced educators. We always have newcomers. Not everybody know noodles, even like I think that everybody know that. No, the other person, I don't know. So we invite Anne to introduce Moodle basics, especially what's the chaos, Astra, the marks meeting. We just finished a marks meeting last week, right? So we do that. Then in 2012, just to anybody remember that year, the students apply for special consideration hit record. And we found that, I talked to my colleagues, I found every lecturers, they don't know how to handle that or handle it in different ways. That's not good. If students involved in more than one courses, they will find they're treated differently. So I quickly email all the lecturers and grab their questions and provide to Melrose and Frank, who is DPGS and head of school teaching. And quickly I made up several slides to make that seminars, to answer all the questions, how we handle special consideration. And good to know that many lecturers, they do need that seminars. They do lack of information. Okay. Then more, the students, when you ask them, what's your biggest challenge? They will tell you it's not, oh, your subject is too hard. It's well-being stuff. I have daytime job. I have family members. All right, I think, okay, it's time to address the well-beings. So, and Angela came to us, and she volunteered herself to be our speaker, which I don't need to spend extra time look for speakers, which is good. So to talk about how we support students' well-beings. Because as a lecturer, we are not professional. We are not doctors. We don't know what to do, especially in School of Engineering. Let's say we don't know what to do. So, okay, let's have at a seminar to teach them basics. What should we talk to the students? Especially students have under huge stress. And at that time, we held a second library research skills seminar. The reason is very simple, because we have a new librarian in our school. It's a good way to present this new librarian, Kathleen, to our colleagues and our students. Just interesting, when Lisa did the first library research seminars, Lisa suddenly got a lot of business from the students. Then I think that time in 2003, there is a new service launched by faculty. It's called the postgraduate support service seminars. And since that's a new business, a new service, all the students and the educators don't know. So we run two seminars, one for students, the color icon in the Moodles to introduce how you can use that, right? And this is the recent two seminars we have run. Inspired from, I attended the external forums, and all the coordinators introduce what is our program looks like. And I suddenly find the problem is, I'm a lecturer in my space program, but do I know the big picture of the space program? Not really. And I have taught that for several years. So, well, this is time to ask those coordinators to introduce your program to the students and all the lecturers involved in your program, to let them the big picture. So at least people know that who should I talk to? That's my coordinator, and that's their job. okay, done. And in that, we have received good feedback, and the students' voice can be heard. That's the lovely part. Feedback from students. They all say that I wish I could given this many years ago, this is really in need. And I'm glad to hear that because I'm doing the right thing. Okay, more important, I'm hear good feedback from my colleagues, especially my bosses. Spike was sitting there, and normally I invite the speaker, but I also invite a local VIPs from my school to present that, so that we value it a lot. And they said, Spike said that, okay, I've been there for a while. I thought this is very useful. And Frank said, okay, you put that pack row to a different level. Oh, so happy to hear that. And Lisa said, library, he know that for a while under that radar. But if library only runs that seminar, normally just a few number of people attend. But I bring the seminars to locals. I ask all my colleagues, please, 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 to help me to promote that. And I remember this number of people attend Join Online, 78. That's a big number, and people are informed. So yeah, good feedback, and I'm so glad. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Lily. That is an excellent feedback. And for those of you who don't know, Lily was just spending all her time promoting a lot of services that my area offers. So we will pay Lily a little bit later for all of those promotions. All right. Are there any questions for Lily? Armin.
Thanks for presentation. Are these live or they're recorded, the seminars that you were referring to?
Yes. And there's a barcode.
Right. So they are recorded and you can reuse them.
And the role, I asked CMU to edit that.
Right.
Yeah, add some beautiful music and then to archive all the recorded seminars in one page. Right. And it is still reused by many colleagues. Right. So that is fantastic. That's
great. And if anyone has any questions, do you have Q&A sessions as well, or you handle the questions in other ways through forum or?
Yeah, we use Slido to handle them. Yeah, and and I in addition in our schools, I also introduced that. I want to introduce these seminars to colleagues in other schools. See what do you need, and I got something here. As a girl she's my friend. She said, okay, you talk about special consideration. That's what I want to hear. And I found, okay, yeah, teaching is all about good practice. It's not like research, it's good practice. We just need to invite senior lecturers who has experienced or head of schools. They get all our colleagues well informed and keep all the things transparent. And we can brought our whole level, teaching to up level. This is we can do and solve problem.
Any other questions? Bhavani, yes.
Oh, there's online question.
Thank you, Lily. We've got a question from Angie online. Do you offer any extra assistance or support specifically tailored for international students?
Good question. Do we have international students? In space program, we have very little international students, not the majority. Yeah, less than 5. Not like Kensington campus, but different from Kensington campus is our postgraduate students, majority is from defense. And you can imagine they're senior than me, older than me. They are very high ranked, so they have more higher expectation among the students. So that's the students' difference between the two campuses. They are not easy to look after.
They're just different, aren't they?
Yeah.
All right, I will finish up the questions here with Lily, and if you have any questions, maybe pop them in a chat, and I'll get Lily to respond in a chat. But thank you very much, Lily, for your presentation. All right, so our next presentation is going to just find Kate in the list. There we go. Our next presentation is by Kate Morgan. Kate will be presenting on benefits of different forms of student feedback on weekly quantitative tasks in an asynchronous delivery mode. It's probably time for a coffee for all of us in the room. All right, I'll get Kate to speed through those slides. Thank you, Kate.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find.
There we go.
There
Over to you.
All right. Yuman, good morning, everyone. I'm an education-focused academic from the business school. I teach postgraduate in the School of Accounting, Auditing and Taxation and the AGSM MBA programs. I'd like to thank the UNSW Canberra team for giving me this opportunity today to present to you on a change I've made to feedback that's had positive student outcomes. So the challenge, there's a couple of cogs here at play. We've got the feedback, we've got the importance of the teacher-student engagement and students feeling part of the learning community. Now, feedback we know is important. We all invest a lot of time in providing feedback to our students, but it's important that we ensure that feedback is effective and has a positive influence on student learning. We also understand that the positive teacher-student engagement contributes to students feeling as part of the learning community, that they feel a sense of belonging. So that belonging is with the university, it's with their peers, but we also have a role as academics. So my challenge or my question is, how do we establish that positive teacher-student connection in an asynchronous delivery mode? So in a situation where I will not meet these students face-to-face, and in many cases, I won't even have a conversation live online with these students. So how do I build that connection? And so what I'm looking at today is just how I'm doing that through changing the way I provide feedback throughout the term. Okay, so just to give you some context, I'm talking about a postgraduate program in our MBA course. It's an accounting subject. We have domestic and international students. So we have students studying from around Australia and internationally. And the majority of our students are part-time students, generally also working full-time at the same time. We deliver this course in several delivery modes. So we do have the in-person mode. Students can choose if this works for them, where they have weekly classes or in an intensive mode. We also deliver it online synchronous, so students are turning up to a weekly virtual class. And then we also have the online asynchronous mode. And just to give you a context of the numbers, we're talking about 8, sometimes a few more classes per year. We run this across 3 terms, and we're talking about 40 students, approximately 40 students per class. So just to narrow the scope of what I'm focusing on today, I'm focusing on the online asynchronous delivery. In this mode, there are optional drop-in sessions every 2 weeks, so students can turn up. We go through the key concepts for those 2 weeks and can work through activities, but these are not scheduled classes, they are optional. And I'd say probably 25% of students would use those classes live. So we do offer a recording that students can watch, and students that are studying in this online asynchronous mode usually chosen that so they can study when it is suitable to them. So often they're watching these recordings on weekends, but watching a recording doesn't help have those conversations and create that connection. So what I'm focusing on is the participation requirement that we have for this course. And within this participation requirement, there are online discussion forums that students participate in where they have that peer-to-peer communication. I'm focusing on the weekly tasks within this, that are weekly activities or problems that they're being asked to work on. So the evolution of the feedback. So prior to 2022, students were given these weekly problems. They're set up as a Moodle quiz. They have a week to complete the problem. There is no time limit on how long they have to complete it. They just need to complete it within that week. It is based on the content from that particular week. And what we're looking for is that they've seriously attempted the problem rather than it being technically correct for their marks. Once they submit that quiz, they do get the solution provided. So as soon as they submit, they'll see a solution and they can self-check against that solution. So the idea is they can check if there are errors, they can work through and try and identify those and have a look at how that was calculated or worked out. So the students self-check. They are encouraged to raise questions in our Moodle forums if they're not sure. We don't get many questions that way, but because I understand students are not all students would be comfortable posting in a forum. So we do offer students to email us directly as well, but we don't get a lot of questions at that point. So what we started to do when we were looking through these quizzes and the results, we started producing a summary of some of the common errors we were seeing each week and releasing that and making it available to all students. So at the end of the week, they could go back into a recap and have a look at that. And we also started looking at producing some short videos that went along with some of those solutions or more detailed workings to help those students that had identified the error but weren't quite sure where they'd gone wrong, but didn't want to ask the question as well. So we started there. But what that meant was their first piece of individual feedback was really on their first assessment. So these quizzes were building up to help them work on that first assessment, but the first piece of individual feedback they were getting was at that point after they'd submitted their first assessment. So what I did in term 2022. So we have all the same processes that we had prior, but I started adding personalized actionable feedback to each question, to each student in the quiz. Now, for some students, they had the correct answer and that was fine. It was just acknowledging that I'd reviewed and seen that. Some students had some minor issues and I could provide some guidance there. If there was a particular concept that looks like they'd repetitively missed, I could give them the feedback there. And then there were some students that needed more guidance where I could particularly direct them to the readings or activities from that week that they could go back and review, or provide a little bit of extra guidance or explanation. And so they would be able to receive that feedback after they'd submitted the quiz. Now, what happened then was they were getting their first piece of individualized feedback in week 1. So once they completed the quiz, they could, and I've put that feedback in, they could read that. What it did was also encourage them to contact me if they had any questions or post those questions in the Q&A forum. So just again, encouragement or reminder that happy to continue the conversation. It did help me identify students at risk earlier. So by providing that feedback, I could see which students I was regularly providing that more detailed feedback with. So I could identify those students to also have that conversation a little bit earlier. I did get more contact from students. So part of this was giving them the actionable feedback, but part of it was also establishing that relationship. And what was happening was I was getting more contact from students. Sometimes it was just an email saying, I read the feedback, thank you, I now understand. Or I'd get follow-up questions. So I've gone through the feedback, I'm still not sure about this area. So it was creating conversations with students. Later in the term, when students were used to this process and the cycle, I'd even get emails from students saying, I attempted the quiz. I realized that I was kind of a long way off in my answers. I've actually gone back, worked through the materials myself. I've identified the issue and I've resolved it. And so I didn't need to provide them the feedback. They'd worked out that, which was perfect. That's what we want them, the point we want them to get to. So I was getting that positive informal, and I'll talk about the formal feedback in a minute. Now, through some of those conversations with students that are talking to them, I was seeing that sometimes they were identifying these issues themselves, and I was kind of repeating the feedback they'd already worked out. So what we started doing then was towards the end of the term, where the problems get a little bit more complex and a little bit longer, I'd started giving students a second attempt for those problems. So they would attempt it the first time, and then if they wanted to, they could attempt it a second time. They could then show me the errors that they'd identified and how they resolved them, or if they had outstanding questions or there was a particular piece of the problem that was still having difficulty with, they could actually put that in their quiz, and then I could provide that direct feedback. So that also reduced some of the workload there with the feedback, because students could actually direct me where they wanted the more detailed response from. So importantly, students were then getting to a point towards the end of the term where they were identifying the errors. They were explaining how they resolved those, and then asking the outstanding questions. So part of doing this, there's time involved in providing this feedback to students. I did initially question myself as to whether or not I was adding value by working through this process. But I was quite surprised at the number of comments I had from students, whether or not that was via email or in those drop-in sessions that I mentioned. But what I was also seeing was that was coming through, and they were commenting on it in my experience surveys. So the important thing was that I was providing actionable feedback, and I had that comment from students that it was giving them feedback that was helping them then build into the major assessment tasks. I was bridging the learning gaps, so I was helping them identify those errors and understand those gaps and work on those gaps. What it was creating was those multiple engagements. So they had all the materials that I normally produce, the announcements, the videos, but this was an extra level of communication. So it was just another path, and they found the feedback in general helpful. So thank you for your time today. I really just wanted to work through or explain just these changes that were made and the positive outcomes that I was seeing from students and the feedback I was receiving. So
Thank you very much, Kate.
Oh, sorry, I clicked one too far. I'll just go back.
Great work. All right. So I have some burning questions as well, but so does everyone else. So I lose. I will pass on to Lisa at the back. No, all good.
Thanks very much for Kate. That was really interesting. What I'd like to just know is, I know that the feedback that you're giving is, I understand it's more general feedback and identification of problems rather than meticulous marking of every step sort of thing. But how labour intensive was it, given that you were doing it every week for around 40 students?
Yes, yeah, it did. It did, particularly in that first term, it did add some workload. What I found was traditionally I was probably providing more feedback I mentioned one of the other tasks that students were doing with the discussion forums, and where they were given a question and they were asked to apply it to their company or a company that they were aware of and find examples. And I was probably spending time kind of engaging in those forums, but not probably adding the value that I would hope with that time. So really that was about students sharing examples from their organisation. So what I did was shift some of that time that I was spending and focus more on this individual feedback. So while the workload did increase for the individual feedback, I found some of that time in just reducing some of the other things that I was doing. The first time I did this, it probably did take a little bit longer, but what I've created over those 2 or 3 terms was more of a database of feedback that I could use. So there are common items that you see from students. And so once I kind of written that once for a student, I would have a copy of that so that I could reuse some of those main components and those common errors, and then you could just adjust it for the particular item. I wasn't going through and, as you said, marking every single line of a particular problem, but what I could see was the key concept that we needed to work on. So I had a lot of that produced. So now I've gotten to the point where I can see the problem, I can see generally what's going on, and I've got something that I can use, and I might just need to adjust.
So I can see that probably about 5 other comments in the chat are all about workload as well. Just one additional aspect of comment that Sue Williamson had was, are the quizzes accessible?
So these quizzes do contribute to their participation, but it is based on a serious attempt. So I need to see that the student has worked through the problem, they've attempted it. Even if they were getting some errors in it, I still see that as they've seriously attempted the activity, and hopefully then they've learned from looking through the solution, the additional materials and my feedback, and they can use those learnings moving into the major assessment tasks.
Perfect. We're going to leave it there, Kate. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. I will hand over to our next speaker, who's also online. So, Stephen, you should have access. Excellent. I can see you do. Fabulous. So our next speaker is Stephen Davis. He will be presenting on being the teacher. And don't we just?
One of the things we've realised, particularly coming through COVID, is just how important teaching is a social process. And so that's what I want to talk about today. To give you some context, once I get my mouse in the right place. To give you some context, I teach postgraduate courses in management areas to both international and domestic students. Now, unlike Lee, I have, in my biggest class, I had over 600 international students. And these tend to be full-time students that turn up to the class and get taught face-to-face. But the domestic students tend to be part-time students. They're often working, so they can't come to the class. And they could be anywhere in Australia or even in the world. I had someone in Canada earlier this year. Now, I've been teaching these courses in hybrid mode since 2013. So what I mean is that the students who are online get to see the recordings. And in more recent years, since about 2017, they've been broadcast live. So the lectures are delivered in face-to-face to the students who are here in Sydney, but they're online for the people who can't be here. Now, as you know, during COVID, everything went online. And this was the biggest change, and my experience results for the students who had been online, because they were tracked separately to the students who were here in Sydney, went up, and I was wondering what was going on. Now, before COVID, our faculty had this really cool system where we would have some students recording the lecturer and mixing it together with the presentation for the students. Now, what I wanted, of course, was them to zoom in on me when I was talking. But what you can see at the back here is they tended to have a wide angle so that they could catch me as I was walking around. Now, when COVID started, of course, there was nothing happening in the lecture theatre, and all the lectures were delivered from my office. Because I had big classes, I used Live Event. And so what happened was, suddenly the students could see my face. And so I think they felt much more connected to me. Now, after COVID finished and we started again, the university set up a lot of classrooms as hybrid rooms. And so I've got an example here of me teaching this term. Once again, you can see it's a wide angle view so that it captures the whole of the room if I walk around. And yes, I like to walk around. I'll come away from behind my computer. We don't want to hide with things between us and our students. But still, it's very hard to see my face. So what I've done is I've got a camera, and you can just see it sitting on a tripod out the front here. And I'm putting myself in the screen just like I'm doing with you here now. So many of you who are watching this online have probably thought that when there were people who were talking in Canberra, it was hard to see the people's face. At least we could see their body movement. But I think for our students, if they're going to be watching close to 40 hours of material a term, it's much more difficult if they don't get to see a face to relate to. So I'll just show you the equipment that I've been using, how I've made this work. So I spoke to my IT team before I started, and they suggested that I get the Ozbot Tiny, which is a head tracking camera. So as I move around the classroom, it will follow me. And I have a simple cheap tripod here. This is technically a selfie stick. There's actually a remote control here, but I removed the smart camera holder and just screw the phone onto the top, and I have a 2-meter USB cable. I also bought a 3-meter USB cable, but it turned out that 3 meters doesn't work very well. So the people who know tell me that 2 meters works better, and I found that that was true. Now, to make it work, I have a bit of software. So I use XSplit VCam. Oh, by the way, the camera cost me a few $100s. This software here, the XSplit, it's a virtual camera, and it removes the background the same way that Microsoft Teams is able to remove a background. I was lucky when I started. I was using this version, which will be in the recording for you. I accidentally upgraded it one day and found out that it didn't work with the rest of my software. So I was able to go back to this version, which I know works. I got an academic version of that, so it was less than $100. And CamDesk is the program that puts me here on the screen. Okay, so it creates a little virtual window. There's the controls. And it also removes the background. So this one's simply, sorry, the VCam simply sends a black background, and then I can tell this to remove it so that I'm just sitting here. Now, you can put this into PowerPoint and have a picture of yourself, a video of yourself talking in PowerPoint. However, I like this way because I often use other tools for teaching, such as showing examples in spreadsheets and using OneNote, so I can write equations out with a pen on the screen. So that's really cool. Of course, what we're interested in is what did the students think of it? So in last term, in my experience, I received these comments. I haven't edited them. These are straight from the students' keyboard. So the best thing about this course is the additional little camera setup. It's really good to watch lectures on a full screen view. Lectures body language helps me to have a better understanding of contents. So at one stage I was using Blackboard Collaborate, which has a tiny, tiny, tiny little picture with the teacher in the corner. This is much better because they can see me much clearer. And so you can see pretty good feedback there. So I'll wrap it up there. Thank you.
Listening to you, so I was not ready for that abrupt end that just happened. So that was fabulous, and there were some cringes when you mentioned the collaborate, the offender of online teaching, and plus it removes you in the recording after all of the effort of looking very tiny. You then still don't exist at the end. It looks like Joanna has some very good news for you in the chat. It looks like some of that equipment is being rolled out into your new CAT spaces. So go you. Any questions for Stephen? And apologies, I know we're running just a smidge behind time, but we're not doing too badly. Any questions? I think there's some comments in there. You know, obviously, I'm a big fan of a teacher presence. So what are you doing here is obviously really demonstrating that teacher presence, putting yourself first, being the source of the presentation or being the center of the presentation rather than the slides, and connecting much better with your students. All right, if there are any questions, oh, there we go, one. There's always a brave person.
Thanks. I was actually looking for the same technology, and it's great that it worked for you. But my question is, how reliable you found this system to be? Was it like, because I tried different apps and they sometimes forget to follow me or just they miss that point, and I sometimes think that, okay, if I just take, as you can see me from far behind, it's better than not seeing me. That's because of a technical issue that some software has. Did you experience anything? How reliable was your setup?
The way the software works is that you have to put your hand up to tell it to that you're the one that's being followed. Normally when I turn it on, it just works. And it's more a matter if sometimes it does lose track of me, and then I have to get back in the screen and put my hand up. Putting your hand up, I think with your thumb sticking out, makes it zoom in and out. I found that that wasn't really a good plan. It zooms out from 1 times to 2 times. Whereas what I've found is that with the 2 meter cord, I want to have it zoomed in at 4 times all the time. So I don't use it for zooming. I only use it for getting track of me again, for tracking me as I move around. I don't move around a huge amount because I obviously can't go past the camera. But I can move and get away from behind the keyboard, and of course go back behind the keyboard when I need to work on an example to show the students.
Excellent. All right, Stephen, thank you so much for your presentation. I will get you maybe to stop sharing so we can take over in the room, and we'll prepare for our in-person presentation next. But while we're doing that, there are some comments in the chat. So if you get a chance, have a look at them. And there is lots of engagement, lots of excitement, and some questions around the placement of the image on the slide. You know, how do you manage that? But thank you very much. That was very inspiring. Now, next presenter is Dr. Armin Chitizar. He will be presenting today on empowering data science capstone with online collaboration tools, a fully online experience. Just do a yes, please. You, Armin.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. Hello everyone, I'm Armin. I'm associate lecturer at the School of Computer Science and Engineering. The course that I'm going to talk about is a data science capstone course. It's a fully online course, and the feedback from students were great, so I thought to share my experience with you. So I'm going to talk about 3 things. First, I'm going to talk about the course, so you know what the course is about and see its feature. And once you want to apply what we have done, you know, okay, this area is close to what I'm doing. I can apply this approach to my course. I'm going to talk about the tools that our students and us as lecturers are using, and then I'm going to point out the issues that some of them have, so you start them with an open eye. Data science course. So what is the data science capstone course? I think one of the best way to start to know a course is through the student. Most of our students are local. They are located at different parts of Australia. We have a student from Sydney, Melbourne, Canberra, Perth. We have also some international students located in Singapore once in one of the courses. They have different backgrounds. Some of them are people who want to change career. They want to get to know more about data science, so they're taking a course and degree. Some of them are already in the data science. I had one student who has his own company and wanted to know more about the data science and what are the most recent updates on data science. So you can see we have a really diverse background of the students. The lectures also, we have 3 lectures. I'm the lecturer from the School of Computer Science. We have Dr. Sarah from the School of Mathematics and Statistics. And we have Dr. Wei from the School of Economics and Business. And you can see, again, we have a diverse range of students and diverse range of lecturers. So, and the whole point of the course is an open-ended problem. We provide the data to a student, and they have to come up with a problem. They have to find a problem in the literature, and then try to answer that problem. Again, it's fully online. We're using real-world data. We keep updating our data. And they have to come with a novel approach to solve that one. At the end, they have to provide a presentation to general audience, and they also have to write a report. It's pretty much like a thesis done by a group of students and supervised by 3 lecturers. Most of our course runs on Moodle. And I'm going to point out a few disadvantages. But the course is fully online through Moodle. The data that we provide 2 data, temperature and electricity demand. And the student can take extra data from outside, and they can use our data. But again, these are real data. They need to clean them. This is exactly how they're going to experience it in the real world. And teams have 4 students. Each week, they have to book a session with us, and if they want, ask the questions, and then we can answer the questions through that 1-hour session. So how technology help? First, I'm going to talk about how technology help the lecturers, us. As I pointed out, they need to book an appointment. The current booking appointment system we're using Moodle. It's good. It has its own advantage and disadvantage, but one of the biggest issues is they have to watch us. They have to run the sessions through Zoom. So it's 2 different ecosystems, 2 different platforms. And so what are the issues? What are advantages? The advantages of using Moodle is because it's already there. Students are there. Everything is there, so it's good. It's ready to run. But the disadvantages, because we have to use Zoom, we have to jump around, and then we're going to record the session, send it back to a student. All of these are done online. First, it was fine with 20 students. Then we had 50 students, and now we have 100 students. It was not scalable. The other issue is a student can submit a session. They can submit the questions before the start of the session, which is good, but they cannot submit a summary of the sessions because the system doesn't accept. Also, we cannot sync it with our calendar. We have to go back to the system to see if anyone booked a session with us or not. And changing was also a bit difficult. What's the better approach? So now we are considering bookings. It's recently recommended, introduced by Microsoft. The advantage of booking is because it's a Microsoft platform. It has Teams there. It has everything that we need, and everything coexists together. So this is something we are considering for next year. And what other things? Marking. So Moodles, we use marking with Moodle. If the students are fine and everything's going well, it's perfect. But if there is any tiny issue with the teams, the peer marking is a serious issue that we had. Again, 20 students was fine, 50 students was a problem, 100 students. I would say 50% of my energy was taken on peer marking and fixing and talking to a student. All of this was just manual. So what can we do better than that one? in our other courses, so this is online Master of Data Science course. For our bachelor courses, we are using some Excel sheet that we can help with the Moodle as well. So it's Excel, it has its own issue. It was developed by several lecturers. Each lecturer adds something to that one. I'm using Power Automate to automate a few tasks. I have 2 honors students who are making it better by adding more additional software to that. If you're interested, email me and I can share you the platform. It's not a platform, it's just an Excel file which helps us a lot. And it gives us a better picture view of what's going on in the course. Coordinating about the lecturers. We are using Teams for meeting, for share filing. Just if we want to coordinate with the other lecturers, use Teams. It works perfectly. There's nothing else I want to add. It's perfect. I'm so happy with that. Learning soft skills. This is quite important. First, okay, we as lecturers, I think it was discussed as well that we as lecturers, we teach them what we are good at. But maybe I'm right. My technical skills is good in my area, but my soft skill might not be at the level that I can teach them, and it's going to take some time. We use linking learning. I strongly recommend if there are some soft skills that you want your student to have, or you expect them to have, use linking learning. It's there, it's perfect, it's short courses. They can use that a lot. How technology help industry partner. So previously we were using a guest lecture in the classroom in my bachelor degrees that I was running. The problem was guest lectures were extremely busy and it's hard for them to find a time that match our lecture time. Now we use professionally recorded sessions. They help a lot. A student love that, professionals love that, and we can reuse that the next year if it's relevant. We also run a Q&A sessions. Again, this is online, and as you can see, this kind guest lecturer, he provided while he was walking back from his work to his home, and everyone were happy. He was happy. He managed to answer our questions. Our student and questions were answered. Everything worked out perfectly. So how technology help now our students? I'm going to talk about these 5 areas, and I'm just going to point at a few software and point out if there is any like a gap or any issue that you should be mindful of. So for communications, we let the students to choose whatever they want. They went for different system. My 2-cent advice for this part is, if a student wants to just to use a chat, like WhatsApp, just chatting, and so it's going to work out because they're busy, ask them to meet regularly. Meeting regularly works, meeting regularly plus chat works, but chat, I have never seen a successful team that can use chat. They're going to have issue, they're going to have problem at the end. So tell them to use actual meeting once a week. Also, they use Zoom to record some sessions among themselves, which I found to be extremely useful. If one person is good at one topic, they can train it to other students using Zooms. I'm just going to cover this one again. Notion is like a whole package. I'm going to point out Notion later, but something fun about Overleaf. So Overleaf is on LaTeX, and LaTeX is something that we really like, but our students who come from industry, they might not be comfortable with. How our students learn LaTeX is through ChatGPT. I think it's a great platform for them to learn how to use LaTeX. This is for programming. We, again, let them to choose whatever they want because some of them come from industries, some of them are more comfortable with one platform than the others. We let them to choose whatever they want. GitHub is great because it's, all of them are great. But one thing I want to point out is our resources, some of our systems are resource heavy. Their project is really needs a lot of computation. I asked with UNSW, I think I forgot the name, but they introduced me to Katana. You need to ask the school to provide access to a student. It's a company with lots of GPU that if you're using data science course, it's going to help your students a lot. Jira, Trello, Notion, simple to-do list. I asked my bachelor student not to use Trello at any cost. But in this course, because it's only 6 weeks and students are comfortable, and I know that they're good, I can let them to choose whatever they want. And it works fine for postgraduate students. For undergraduate students, ask them to use Jira because that's what it's used in industry. And Jira has access to GitHub as well. Lastly, literature review, because again, this is more like a research. They need to do literature review. We use Mendeley ourselves. Our student using unsw.to. Some using Google Drive. I asked them, okay, if the overhead is too much for you, use Google Drive, but unsw.to and Mendeley are perfect. And they can learn a little bit to think like a data scientist. That was everything from me. Thank you so much. I also want to thank Professor Julian for recommending for me to present this at this Education Festival event. Thank you.
Fantastic. You've shared very kindly with us all sorts of things that you're doing with your students online. Any questions for Armin? David, you will get the bravest.
Do I get an award? No, thanks, Armin. You mentioned that midway through there was some issues and you spent a lot of time in relation to peer marking.
Yes.
Would you be able to give us a little bit more context around what the issue was? And obviously there's group work within this and it's quite a short space of time, the course,
right.
But it'd be good to get a sense of what was happening there.
So there are two peer marking. The name is quite confusing. One of them is a team who work together. If they have some conflict and some say, okay, this member work more, then what percentage? In that aspect, actually, I have two honors who are working in this area. We need more information. We need to know this in advance, firstly, because Moodle just happens to be at the end of a term when everything is over. We need continuous feedback from the team. Also, we need to know more about what they are doing, and the whole thing, the information need to be toward us, like we have access to all that related information. For this, I had to contact each student to send me, to add me to your GitHub. If you haven't added me, send me any note that you have. So I had to contact a student back and forth. So I had to ask the other lecturers. It's not really working efficient. And also I cannot see the whole story. I have to go back to the previous mark, what the mark was back then, what's the successful theme. So there's lots of labor work for lecturers to do. What at least we have in this one, it shows the whole marks if they've done well. We also done the peer marking throughout the whole term for every single assessment they have. So if there is any problem, we know in advance. That's the whole thing. It can be done, but it requires a lot of labor work for us to see, okay, who's done more, who's maybe overthinking that they've done more than what they really done and these sort of things. So we have to go back and forth and contact them. That's the thing that we prefer not to do. And for this course, it's still fine. If you have mentors, you have to get mentors involved, which also an issue.
Yeah, no, thank you. So it's very much around that kind of, would be fair to say, sort of group disagreements and how the groups are functioning and potentially not functioning.
Yes.
Sometimes.
So we prefer to know this early in advance rather than just at the end of a term that they've done that peer marking.
Cool. And that sheet there that you just showing up and you're talking about all their assessment marks, that's just for the course, not for the program?
This is for the course, not
okay,
just
cool.
for the course.
Cool.
And this is actually all the data are made up, or you generate the data randomly. So there's no privacy issue here. I think Hugh Jackman is one of my students here. But this at least gives me, again, this also is more beneficial for larger cohort. And I think we need that for data science as well. This classes that I'm talking about is 500 students. We have 15 tutors, and we should also note if the tutors are doing well or they are kind of not doing well as well. So this kind of gives a bigger picture of what they're doing. Again, because it's Excel, it has its own issue, but my students who are working, I hope that at next time they're gonna finish that project, which they can solve the issue that the Excel has, and it's gonna be a better platform to run.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, I think in the spirit of time, we might push on, and Bradley, maybe you can try to take over the control while we just transition. But there are some comments in the chat for you there. So there are services offering a platform that might collapse a number of different things that you're already doing into one place. And Tim had a question around, there are so many platforms that students are being asked to engage in. Is it challenging for them to operate across all of those platforms? So something to kind of think about. But if I can get you to answer those questions in the chat, that would be great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Armin. All right, our next presenter is online. So our presenter is Dr. Bradley Hastings. Bradley will be presenting on going under the hood of our stories, how getting clear enabled positive, inclusive and engaging leadership for an executive education cohort. So over to you, Brad.
Thank you so much. I'm just a little bit lost on the slides, actually.
Okay.
I can't seem to find my slides. Yes.
Yep. Let me just, I will just do my best to progress them for you. Okay.
Thanks very much. Great. Oh, thank you. I think that's it. Yeah. Thank you so much, and welcome everyone. Thank you. Welcome from Gadigal country, where it's actually very grey outside. I certainly hope that it's brighter and sunnier where other people are joining this call from. That is a rather long title and slightly counterintuitive to the subject that I really want to talk about, which is one of my passions around how to create clear conversations that enable learning between people, positive collaborations between students, and thus enabling things like diversity, problem solving, innovation, etc. What I'd really like to, or what I'm going to talk about, if I just can move the slides. Excuse me. Doesn't seem to want to work. No, unfortunately. Are you able to advance the slides for me? Ah, there we go. Okay. This slide is deliberately designed to not be very clear because the topic of what I want to talk about, again, if I could advance the next slide, is a pedagogical approach that brings clarity to our communication, and in doing so opens up spaces for students to learn. And I'm going to narrate this story in three parts. I'm going to start by a common problem that I've seen, and actually a real problem that students have brought to me that involves communication. I'm going to talk about a pedagogical approach to that, which is a framework called Clear Leadership, and specifically the Experience Cube, on how to address that problem. And then I'm also going to present the outcomes of some research that we've been doing for an executive education cohort, where I've been actually applying this approach to help them improve their communication and thus open up spaces for learning. So I'm going to start with the story of my students, and this is something that I'm sure that many of you have experienced. When we ask students to work in teams, we sometimes get them coming to us. And for me, one of the times that they came to me with a problem, this is pretty much what was said. So one of them said about the other person, well, that person isn't pulling their weight. And then that other person said about the first person, well, actually, my voice isn't valid in this space, so why should I bother actually contributing? And so what we can see here is two very different stories that students have. They've had the same experience. They've been involved in a teamwork environment, but they've narrated two very different stories in their heads. And why this is, I think, a problem is that when we have these stories and they're separate, it creates what I call, and what Jervis Bush calls, interpersonal mush, which is essentially when people have a story of another person that they haven't actually checked out in their heads. And because we're operating on these different stories, then our subsequent actions aren't going to be aligned. They're going to be based on our stories, and they could potentially go very separate ways without creating that alignment. And if we don't have that alignment, then we're not opening up spaces to work together. And I guess the other problem here is that the reality is, with these stories in our heads, they're not pulling their weight, they don't value my opinion. This statement of, if I say what I really think, things will get worse, not better, is actually kind of true, because just think about that interaction. You don't value me. It's very much a kind of a throwing a judgment out there. And if anything, that kind of judgment or throwing that judgment into the conversation is probably more likely to lead to tension than to open up a space for learning. So what I want to talk about with clear leadership is how to open up that space, how to take that same context, how to take this exact same situation and open it up. And in doing so, I guess it's the other way of thinking about it is to go under the hood of this narrative and try and open up that space for collaboration and for learning. So one of the things that clear leadership talks about is this idea of describing experience, not judgment. So judgment is exactly that. It's our thinking. It's, you did this, or I think you did that, or it takes a kind of a right and wrong perspective of what is good and what is bad. Whereas if I sort of step back from that, for example, and just describe my experience, and I'm accepting that my experience is this, but your experience might be different, then I'm opening up a space for learning. So what that means is I'm not just telling you what I'm thinking about the situation. I'm telling you what observations I've had that led me to that thinking. I'm also talking about my emotions. I'm also talking about my wants. And it's less of a my truth perspective. It's really just saying, hey, this is my experience at this particular situation. So let's see how this plays out for our students. And so part of clear leadership is this concept of the experience cube, which is saying that in any one point in time, I'm experiencing the world through four dimensions. So I have my observations, which are what I see and what I hear. I have my thinking, which is my sense making based on those observations. I also have feelings. I might be feeling a bit sad or a bit mad or a bit anxious about what's going on. And I also have wants. I have really significant wants for this present moment. And together they encapsulate the sort of complete essence of my experience. So for students, helping to unpack their experience really follow these four dimensions. So if I go back to the students that had that particular problem, I'll tell you what happened when we started to unpack that experience. So the first student who was, doing that, you're not pulling your weight thinking, well, actually, that person was able to say, my observations are that when it comes to time for action, I observe that you're silent. That makes me feel disappointed and makes me think that you're not pulling your weight. And what I really want here is to share the load. And you can see it by explaining it in that way, it's a little bit less judgmental. It's much more open, and it allows someone else listening into that conversation to start to draw the links between how the logical flow of that judgment has actually unveiled. The other student, their experience is quite different. In the past, when I've offered up ideas, they've not been taken up. And that makes me think that my opinion's not valid. So I feel like an outsider. And, I do want to contribute to the team. I just don't know how. So we've got two very different experiences of the same situation. And by bringing this together and describing it in this way, students can actually start to open up that space for learning. And what they start to learn when they describe it in this way is that what seemed like quite a different experience actually has some overlaps. For both of these students, they had the same wants. They both cared, but they just had different thinking or sense making about the situation. And by bringing the stories together in this way, they were able to understand how their different experience of the same situation led them to think differently. But because they have the same wants, they were able to resolve those differences and then work out how to productively collaborate together. So these are not all of the skills of clear leadership. There's a few more, and I won't go into these now. But for me to be clear about my experience, I need to have an awareness of my experience. I need to be descriptive. I need to be able to describe my experience. I also have to be curious about someone else's experience, be prepared to listen and understand and walk that mile in their shoes. And the last thing that I need is also to be appreciative, which is aligning the whole conversation with positive intent. And these are kind of the underpinning skills that help people communicate as per the experience cube, communicate their experience rather than judgment. So as I mentioned earlier on, I've done this for a executive education cohort. It's a bunch of health executives. And what we found in the research aspect is that this intervention has actually significantly increased their learning goal orientation and also the quality, thing that in business we call TMX, which is team member exchange, which is the quality of team interactions as reported by the cohort. And I'm really delighted that by working with the team to help them understand their experience, to expand that experience, they've been able to actually have much more productive conversations, which have opened up spaces for learning, opened up spaces for innovation. That's another measure which has actually increased. And generally, people have reported a much more positive and engaging team environment. Thank you very much. I think the next
Bradley, are there any questions for Brad? Just double check the chat. Nothing in the chat.
Can we ask?
Feel free to ask. David, I will be. We will even feed him today.
Thanks, Bradley. Really enjoyed that. The question I've got is, I suppose around, would you see this? This is obviously set up in a individual course. Is this something that you could see being implemented not as a specific course itself, but through other courses, as helping people understand the sort of benefits of that communication style, because it is such an important thing.
Look, I absolutely agree, and I think it is across so many domains, and how we communicate, particularly in this age of increasing complexity that we live in. I think that the getting clear on how we work together is just super important. So absolutely, I think that some sort of foundational structure of how to have these conversations is absolutely essential. And I noticed in the chat that someone talked about crucial conversations. There's a number of different conversational models out there. There's crucial conversations. There's the SBI model of difficult conversations. The clear leadership model in the experience cube, I just think is probably the best. It's actually quite similar to crucial conversations, but what it does is it just, I think it unpacks it in a more practical way that I've found is more helpful for students to understand. So yeah, absolutely agree. I think this is quite foundational to more than just communication courses. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, thanks, Bradley. That was actually me that put that up there. So I'm actually interested to look more into what you've been speaking about. But
yeah, they all try and differentiate different aspects of conversations, and I think they do it in slightly different ways. So, but I do think that clear leadership just does it in a more inviting way for students. Yeah.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? We have someone with a hand up online. All right, we do take that. Go ahead.
I think
it's Dirk. Hello, Dirk. Welcome.
Hey, how you doing? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes.
Perfect, yeah. So I was just, Bradley, great presentation. Thank you for sharing that. Enjoyed that a lot. Did you see any parallels with this newer concept of radical candor? Have you heard of that book being released recently, and have you looked into how they maybe overlap and complement each other?
I haven't actually, I haven't read Radical Candor, but I've read a number of books that are similar, like Fierce Conversations, and there's a number of different approaches in that space. I think that they all are trying to achieve very, very similar thing. So I can't comment on the methodology or the approach of Radical Candor, but these are foundational structures that are trying to get under the hood of presentations. Communication. Sorry. What I think, and I don't mean to sort of keep drumming clear leadership. I just think it's simpler. I think it's a really simple kind of process that doesn't. A lot of those ones can be one of those models that I've read can be a little bit more psychological around trying to get under the skin of the psychology of what we're thinking. And I think that might be a little bit too advanced for some of our students. And what I really like about the clear leadership structure is it's just a cube and you just walk through it. And I think that's a really simple and practical way of doing it.
Thank you.
All right, I'm just again conscious of time, but what we'll do is Sharon has her hand up, but Brad, can I just get you to stop the control over the slide so I can get the person who will be presenting in person to maybe set themselves up? And Sharon, go ahead and ask Brad your question, please.
Oh, thank you so much, Brad. I loved it. I absolutely loved this presentation. And to me, I think echoing a lot of what's in the chat, it really opens up for all of us doing group work ways of sort of helping students solve the issues that group work can bring. My question is, this was for executive students, so students with experience of the workforce and so on. How do you think this would go with undergraduate students who maybe are a lot more novice in this area?
I actually think it'd be really helpful because I think, I teach. I have lectured a management course for undergrad students, and I think one of the things they're always looking for is they're not quite sure how to actually interact with people, and I find that they kind of sometimes sit back and things slide by that they really should jump in on. And I think I'd really like to take this into the undergraduate space because I think it helps provide a real sort of foundational underpinning of how to approach some of the difficult things. So I think there's a great space for it there, and I think there's a lot of stuff in executive education that we should be actually trying to get to people a lot earlier in their careers.
Makes sense. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we will move on to our next set of presenters.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Bradley. Our presenters today in the room, we have Helen Flint and David Bond. They will be presenting on design considerations for fully online programs. So what I'll do is I'll just turn the camera your way, Helen.
Hi everyone. Hi, I'm Helen. I'm a Senior Program Officer with UNSW Online. My role focuses on supporting design, delivery and evaluation of our courses, including maintaining the processes that underpin the support of our programs. So we're here today to talk about how we do course design and what we've done to uplift our processes as we've learned more about fully online program delivery. First, I'm going to run through a bit of background about UNSW Online. We deliver fully online postgraduate programs targeted at post-experience students, so students who already have workplace experience. And we partner with an online program manager, Keypath Education Australia, to deliver those programs. UNSW Online started teaching in mid-2019, and over the past 4.5 years, we've welcomed more than 4,000 students into our programs. The average age of a UNSW Online student is in their mid-30s, and over 95% of them are domestic students. And we use a specific model to meet the needs of this generally quite mature, heavily committed and time-poor cohort. So we use an accelerated calendar called the Hexamester calendar. It's got six-week teaching periods each year, so they pretty much study back to back all through the year. And students take one course at a time and dedicate about 20 hours a week to their studies. So most of these people are working full time and then trying to do 20 hours study on top of that. So they are pretty under the pump. Our courses are fully developed before the start of teaching and then delivered fully online and asynchronously. So all course materials are available to students from the start of teaching, and they can work ahead if they wish. And there's no expectation that a student will ever turn up to a UNSW campus or that they will ever have to turn up to an activity at a specific time. So course design with UNSW Online, I've got the course design map up here and it's quite detailed, but I want to just focus on two key aspects of the design process. In some ways, this is really standard design, right? Build, evaluate and iterate. There are two ways in which it's a little unusual. First of all, you can see from the colour coding that there are lots of people involved in designing a UNSW Online course. And secondly, the courses are, as I just mentioned, fully designed, built and quality assured, and then opened to the students at the beginning of the course. So from the time that you start teaching, it's all there, and it's an intense process, which is kind of more like writing a textbook almost than it is traditional course design, which can be a lot more fluid. The main participants in the course design process are here in pink, the UNSW academic who leads the program. So we usually call that a program director, and they are the person with the primary responsibility for the program and for finding and providing support to the subject matter experts that deliver the courses in our program, and also the teachers down the track. In green, we have the academic subject matter expert who will design the course and create the content. And then the learning design team in light purple will support the designing process and build that content into a course website. Then we have UNSW Online in the purpley bluey colour, and we provide project oversight and support throughout the process. Each course is primarily a collaboration between the academic subject matter expert and the learning design team. And that whole process is overseen by the academic lead and by UNSW Online, who come in at key checkpoints, including the course development kickoff, a prototype review halfway through the course build, and a final course walkthrough. Usually this takes about 6 months to go from start to finish, but the content writing component needs to be completed early, pretty much by about 2 months before teaching, in order to allow enough time for the media to be built out properly, the course website to be built out properly, and for it to be quality assured before it's released to students. Then the course content is not changed during delivery. We found that most academics who come to work on UNSW online courses are new to this approach. And even when they've taught online before, it's been not quite the same. So good guidance on design and the design process is essential to deliver a high quality course. We've now built about 100 courses using this process. And as we've gained more experience and seen the student feedback, we've realised that we have a bit of an issue where the student experience is impacted by inconsistency between the courses, and that academics could also benefit from a clearer structure to simplify the design process. The HEC semester schedule is really intense, and we want our students to spend their time learning the course content, not working out where to find things in the course website or learning about how to use a new software unless that's a specific objective of that individual course. And we want subject matter experts who are also going through an intensive design process to focus on finding and curating the best content and resources for the students, not on discussing, well, what's the best time to put assessments into the course, what should the facilitation model look like, because we can work out some of that stuff up front. So we decided to go back a step and add in a program level design workshop. So reflecting on the student experience and the academic experience, we concluded we needed a clearer vision at the program level and to create a document that could be used to guide the design, build and evaluation of courses. We created a workshop to address key questions with the program stakeholders, and we held that workshop with the academic lead, with some members of the learning design team and with UNSW Online. And this lets us get all our many people aligned on the expectations for courses within that program before we start development on those courses. And it puts the learning design team in a good position to guide the incoming developing academics. We call it a program and course design considerations workshop. I've listed out a few of the key questions that we talk through here. Primarily, we're looking for the academic lead to work out in conjunction with everyone else, make some decisions on some of these things that will affect design throughout the whole program. So how will industry perspectives be incorporated into the courses in this program? Are you going to use case studies? We'll be trying to bring in industry experts, make videos, other kinds of content. Will there be accessible group work in the program? A lot of our courses don't have group work, but some of them do. And if there's not accessible group work, will there be other opportunities for social learning, collaboration between the students? What will be the default assessment structure for courses in the program, and what will be the due dates and weightings? Having consistency across assessment structures makes it a bit easier for the students, and if it's thought about up front, it helps reassure the people who are doing the course build that they've got the timing right on those sorts of things. Students have had enough time to learn and have something to be assessed on, but it's early enough that they'll be getting feedback that they can use to improve their performance through the duration of the course. And what will the facilitation model look like? So we don't just build a course, you also then have to deliver it. So how will forums, webinars and student consultation be managed, and how and when will the students receive feedback? From the workshop discussion, we go on and produce a program and course designs consideration document, which articulates a program position on all these questions and creates a default course design, which is recognisable from course to course. And this is intended to make it easier for the students to navigate around the course and have a more consistent experience from course to course, and to reduce the number of design decisions that the developing academics need to make in the design process. And it also has the benefit of establishing guidelines that we have checked are in alignment with UNSW policies and procedures, so we can be reassured that our courses are compliant. I want to emphasise that this is intended to create a default course design which can be used to design the courses, but there is flexibility to modify the design in any individual course if required. We ran this workshop for the first time early this year as we commenced development for our latest program in human resource management. And so far we've had positive feedback from the learning design team about making it easier for them to onboard incoming academics and do the early stages of design. And we've just finished teaching our first course, and that also had positive feedback from the students, so that's great. And we'll keep monitoring the feedback from the learning designers, from the developing academics and from the students, and see how we go. So I'll pass on to Dave to do some reflections on how this design process works from his perspective.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks, Helen. Thanks, everyone, for being here, and also big hello to everyone down in Kensington and wherever else you are. I'll have to be quick because, yeah, we were getting quite scared emails from, well, I got scared by emails from Deanna about how much time we had. So my name is David Bond. I'm Director of Online Programs at the AGSM. Helen provided really good context, as did Wiley earlier on, and Armin sort of talked about it a little bit as well, around what the online programs are. And the context is really important for my comments that will come up here. One thing I would hazard though is I don't think these are purely restricted to online programs. I think these comments are more generalizable to online and hybrid and on-campus programs. They're also, I'd imagine, they're also generalizable to existing programs. So it's not just around new course builds or new program builds, but also for looking at uplifting it and looking at existing programs and what you can do there. Two very quick caveats before I get going. I've been here less than 6 months. This design workshop happened prior to my arrival here, so I can't comment on the intricacies of that. I do have experience in online programs in a very, or almost exact same model at UTS prior to being here. So, you know, I am aware of what's going on here. This has also, as Helen mentioned, been implemented in the new HRM program, which has only just gone out, but the initial kind of data points are looking really favourable, but Helen did touch on that. So I think in terms of 3 reflections from this in my time here so far, it creates a really holistic approach to program builds. And I think Lily actually mentioned on that importance more from maybe the student side of actually understanding where we are. And I think that helps everyone understand that, because these program builds can happen over a relatively extended period of time. You know, we're looking at, for the HRM program, about 18 months for everything to roll out. When I was at UTS, the course I was program lead for, that took 2 years from sort of start to finish. And you've got lots of different people involved along the way. So having that overarching sort of view of what you're trying to get at is super important. The design principles, they do create constraints. Now that's not necessarily a bad thing. These are also kind of softer rules, so they're not, you know, if you need to break something, you can. But by having that, I think one of the major benefits I've seen from that is it simplifies the communication of expectations. People have a better sense of what they're doing. The academics not experienced in this context, and quite a number of them aren't. It is quite a new thing within UNSW in terms of this specific kind of context. It helps them understand what's required and the context they're walking into. So it just helps them in that process. For L&D teams involved in the builds, it gives them better assurance that the academics they're working with understand the context they're working in. So again, so both parties are aware of that. And for the students, it gives them a more consistent experience across their time with us through the program. So I think from a student experience point of view, that should hopefully assist, again, early days yet, but should assist them in terms of the experience that they have with us here at UNSW. The final thing, and it's actually been touched on in a number of different points throughout today, is it's very much a team game, which is great because it means everyone can play to their own strengths. And like it, you know, I found it, I've been involved in course builds, I've been involved here in a slightly different level, and I found it a really useful experience and just a better working experience. But this isn't always everyone's lived experience in terms of building and delivering courses. So there is, you know, maybe a cultural piece of that, but it's understanding how we onboard them and how we work with them. And I think the workshop, what it helps do in having these guiding principles, helps them realize they're part of a bigger piece. And so they kind of understand where they're situated within that. I think I've gone a little bit over time, but yeah, thank you. Hopefully there's some questions because I can't ask any more at the moment.
Thank you, David and Helen. Are there any questions for David and Helen? Just while I'm walking up to Debbie, I absolutely love what you guys are doing. I think it's highlighting how much we have changed in the way that we approach education and how different teaching online is, and that we need to take that into account. Debbie, go ahead.
Thank you so much. That was really great and really helpful. And what I wanted to ask you about, though, was applying this to the existing programs. You said it will work, but what I see is lots of challenges. We have here online programs that have existed for a long time. We have courses that are like foundational, have been in existence for a very long time, and resistance to change is great. So any guidance that you can give in applying this, or what challenges you have found in applying to existing programs?
It's, I mean, interestingly, like, I mean, that's a really good question from a sense of like, we haven't sort of rolled this out across existing programs as yet, but what you get at in terms of resistance to change, I mean, there is a stakeholder management piece with that, and how we work and sort of understand where we're trying to get to. Now that's not necessarily easy, and I definitely don't have all the answers. But being able to take that step back, at least have a sense of what the program is about or what a course is about at that overall level, I think it then allows you to figure out where those gaps are and where things can be improved. As to then actually making that happen, that's a very different piece, and not always easy.
Can I just add to you? So obviously this is our challenge here, and I think the map that Helen shared earlier shows the number of different people that need to be involved in the design process. And I think maybe if we start to look at the course design from the expertise point of view, that every team has a role to play, then we can start to shift that dial towards a team approach to course design.
Thank you. Maybe that's a comment, not a question. I agree with that, the holistic approach, because we are competitive not only like with UNSW, right? It's competitive with other universities. And I'm teaching space since 2015, and I can see other universities also have space program. Like holistic view, I just wondering, like any plans, faculty or university level can create some easy use tools to help us to improve our teaching without too much workload.
Yeah, I think I'll take it as a comment. The workload piece is obviously a pretty important part of it, and we've heard that through the day. But yeah, happy to chat later.
Asking for unicorns here now. Thank you very much, David and Helen. That was wonderful. All right. We will move on to our next two presenters, which will be both coming to us from online. So, team, I will get you to take over the control. Excellent. All right. So our next presenter is Tim Dobbins, and he's also got a team behind him who've prepared or worked on this presentation, which are Katrina Blazic and Anita Haywood. And Tim will be presenting on the topic of building a learning community in a large course using hybrid teaching. Over to you, Tim.
Thanks very much. So I would like to just acknowledge that I'm on Gadigal land, which always was and always will be Aboriginal land. So the context of this talk is a course called Foundations of Biostatistics. This was a course that was developed or released in 2021, and it was hybrid since its inception. It's a large course for postgraduate students in the School of Population Health, and we had about 400 students last year. And those students come with very mixed levels of confidence in learning biostatistics, and about 80% register for online lectures. The course gets quite favourable my experience results. What I wanted to focus on is the learning community in purple. So from inception, we have been able to create a positive learning community, and that has increased over time. So I just wanted to reflect on some of the things that I do, that we do, that help students feel part of that learning community. One of my favourite pieces of feedback from last year was this quote. So this was a student on a Thursday evening at 7:30 p.m. who basically said, "It's my birthday and I didn't want to miss this class." It still makes me smile. So before I started teaching hybrid, and even in the last couple of years, I thought of my students as 3 separate groups. We had our in-person groups, we had our students online watching in synchronous mode, and then we had the online asynchronous students who would watch later. But in reality, and I reflected this year more than ever, these 3 groups really overlap. So we have students coming in person who might even watch the lecture at the same time, so they can read the comments from our learning community, and might even go home and watch the lectures again asynchronously. We have students watching online live, and maybe they'll watch again later. And then, of course, we have our asynchronous students, some of whom may not even watch my lectures. And I think it's really important that we think about those groups and make them all feel welcome. So a couple of ways that I do that is I always include a waiting room slide. So when someone joins a Microsoft team, there's nothing worse than joining a black room with no other people. So I like to include a waiting room slide to make students feel like they're in the room, that right room at the start, and also know when the lecture will start. But also I like to pepper that with a little bit of a taste of the UNSW campus. I love working on campus, and I want to make students feel that connection as well. So here's an example of one of my waiting room slides. I've got a picture of the globe on UNSW mid-campus. You can see down the bottom right have a recap quiz, and that's a Menti quiz. So students can recap while they're waiting on the previous week's work. I also like to give a bit of credit for that art piece so that students know where they can find it if they want to see it. And interestingly enough, I love this piece in the Hilton Hotel, which is another piece by this artist, which stands at about 16 metres tall, which I was thoroughly impressed with. Another way that I make all students feel welcome is a pre-course questionnaire. So I teach statistics. Many people don't want to learn statistics. So I like to contextualize students' experience, attitudes, and confidence. And I share the results with the students in week 1. So this is done in O week. And then students can see that 60% of the cohort feels anxious about learning biostatistics. So immediately they feel safe. They know that they're studying with people who are not statisticians. And that's the goal of this survey. What else do I do? I share something about myself. I don't know about you, but I remember my lecturers, specifically some of my lecturers, because of their hobbies. I know that one of my second-year lecturers bred greyhounds, and I remember that from 25 years ago. So I include something about myself to recreate that in-lecture experience. I've got a picture of my dog here. You could have pets or plants or favourite parts, types of tea, and this can be carried through into your introduce yourself activities in Moodle. For example, students loved posting pictures of their dogs in Teams. So this is a collection of my class's dogs over the term. There was also a cat, so the cat lovers weren't missing out. And there's also Souvenir the pet rock, which I think was my favourite pet of the term. I focus quite a lot of time in my question and answers by always repeating the questions. I've got to say, today's hybrid session is one of the best I've ever seen. The microphone is working, the participants are reading questions from the audience, but that doesn't always happen in a lecture. So I always repeat that question because my students will usually not ask with a microphone, and questions online will not be visible after the meeting ends, or they're quite difficult to find. So I repeat my question. It lets me paraphrase the question so that at least I know I'm answering the right thing, and it makes students feel part of the group. So this student was actually an asynchronous student, and she said that she felt like she was part of the group because of that repetition of the questions. Again, always monitoring the chat. I personally do this individually, and I encourage the use of the hands up function. But if that's not possible, you could consider having an alternative teacher answer that question. And something that we do in the school quite a bit here is to have a safe time. So 10 minutes, I use 10 minutes at the end of each lecture, which is not recorded. So students can ask their quote silly questions without the fear of that being recorded for the asynchronous students to watch. And that's been received really well by our students. They really enjoy that opportunity. And of course, any of these any important points that come up in safe time are discussed on Moodle later. Now you'll see that I used a bit of polling in the waiting slide. That's quite a good way of revising material, but in the middle of a lecture, it can be a little bit clunky. I always record discussion about the quiz so that there is actually some learning apart from that quiz. But also, sorry, I've lost my slide. That formal polling can be clunky, and I don't want students to always bring out their phone and just, scan the QR code. So to take the temperature of a room to say basically, how are you feeling about that last concept? I ask students to use Teams reactions. So I ask them, if you're feeling good, thumbs up. If you're feeling unsure, put a face in. And that way I can just get a quick temperature check of the room. How did that last concept go down? Did you find that useful or not? So if you think the idea of using a quick poll here would be useful, thumbs up. Otherwise, put a face in. And then there's the Introduce Yourself forum. So traditionally, O Week has included an Introduce Yourself task, but in a class of 400 students, that can be a little bit confronting. So you may be living in an apartment and you can't have a pet, so we can't use the pet example. One approach I used this year was to make smaller groups to create safe learning environments for each student. So essentially like when you go into a plane, which is comprised of 4 sections, if you like. Don't worry, I didn't have a business class section. I set up lounges, so each student could interact in their own safe space with only around 40 students in each lounge. Unfortunately, it didn't really change the learner engagement. There were no my experience comments around the lounge this year, and the Moodle discussion, sorry for the busy table, I should learn from my own teaching. The number of posts did not increase over time, and the introduction posts didn't increase either. So it looks like even though learner engagement increased, I think that was probably not related to the lounge. I think it was probably natural variability and probably me being more experienced with hybrid teaching over the last 3 years. So to summarize, I think that learning communities can be encouraged, even in large hybrid courses, by thinking about how your multiple students groups experience your course, making all students feel welcome, no matter which cohort they're in, and make them access all aspects of teaching. And of course, the Q&A sessions, always think about the student who may not be in the room, may not be watching live, and may be watching later. So, thank you.
and lots of very positive comments in the chat. A lot of people loving the approach that you've taken. I will take a question this time because I'm very keen. So this is something that really excites me, and I'm all about the learning communities and so forth. But being that you didn't see any increase in the learner fostering of learning community in terms of the numbers and so forth, you think it's just a variability. Will you continue, I suppose, with the strategies that you've already put in place to continue despite of maybe not really maybe having as great effect on the numbers as you hoped?
Yeah, look, I think I will continue. I'll probably make the lounges bigger. I think I made them too small. I like the idea of a big class because you've got a critical mass. You even if you have 5% of students interacting, that becomes contagious. So making perhaps bigger lounges, but also I think in that previous table, I was measuring success through post rate. And is that really a measure of engagement, given that the learning community scores increased in my experience overall? And the learning community that I saw on Microsoft Teams during lectures was just fantastic. It's one of the best I've ever seen. And I think Silas points to this, that students are becoming more comfortable in hybrid learning environments. So it wasn't a hard job to do the lounges, so I think I will continue.
Yeah, fantastic, fantastic. It doesn't look like we have any questions. Oh, there's just as I said that. So Robin has a question. How did you allocate the lounges?
So that was done randomly through Moodle groups.
Okay. All right. So using the Moodle grouping
Yep.
facilitated. Fantastic. All right. Oh, Amin.
Hi, team. Great. Lots of great advice, great things that I'll try to learn and then apply them to my course. One thing which I really like, but I need to know more about, is the first quiz that you mentioned. So how difficult it is any mark associated to that, or there's only just for them to learn?
No, it was not even a quiz. It was more of an attitudes test. It wasn't a test at all. It was the how you feeling. So that was done as a Moodle quiz. And I used it as a gatekeeper for releasing some of the materials. So if you want the materials, please tell me how you're feeling about learning this course.
Fabulous. One of the ways to engage students, isn't it?
Exactly.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Tim. We will move on and now from you over to Dirk for his presentation. Thank you. Now, Dirk, if I just get you to request the control. There we go.
I just did. Can you hear me?
All right. So our second last presenter for this session is Dirk Primus. He will be presenting on the fitness industry practices for teaching excellence. So I know someone in the room who will be very much excited about looking at something like this. So take it away, Dirk.
Thank you so much. Let me just, can you hear me well?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. So I hope I pronounced this correctly. I want to say Yoma, everyone. Good afternoon in Canberra. Good afternoon, everybody out there. Before I do anything else, I want to thank Diana and Bhavani for an excellent organization. Can we just give them a virtual intermediate applause and in the room, please? Because I think this has been excellent so far. Thank you so much. Yeah. Like Diana kindly said, my name is Dirk. I work for the business school here in Kensington, and my area of research and teaching is technology and innovation management. And what you're going to hear in the next 10 minutes is mostly not related to teaching technology and innovation management. Okay. Before I get started, I want to thank Ollie and Mark at the Education Initiative for sponsoring this project and for giving us some funds to execute this research. So if they listen to this, if they hear this in any form of way, thank you, Ollie, and thank you, Mark, for sponsoring us. And while we're at the point of thank yous, I also want to acknowledge and thank the team that helped me with this in the last 3 months. So There's Francis, there's William, there's Elizabeth, and there's Shatanik, and they're in the room. I think they're waving. And can you say hi quickly? So they worked hard, they helped a lot, and it wouldn't look as it is if it wasn't for them. So I want to acknowledge that and hopefully give them a chance to experience the ovations at the end of the presentation with me. So let's jump in and let's talk about the inquiry process. I'm not calling this a research process on purpose. Oh, someone, sorry, flip my slides. Is that okay? Can you see the inquiry process right now? Okay, good, good. So I'm not calling this a research process because it's not a traditional research process at all. And we kind of in this inquiry process, we combined two basic philosophies. The first one is from cross-industry innovation, and the second one is more from general innovation practices, recent contemporary ones like design thinking, creative methods kind of approaches. And I'm spending a minute or two on this because hopefully this is going to inspire some of the colleagues that attend this conference, and maybe motivates them, gives them some energy to also look into neighboring spaces. So this cross-industry innovation principle, the first time I heard about this was when my boss in the biopharmaceutical industry, I worked there for 14 years in R&D and custom development. My boss, very wise person, said, before you put together an R&D team and spend a lot of my money, why don't you go look if a problem has been solved elsewhere? Because in my long experience, 99% of all problems have been solved somewhere else. And I kind of took that to heart, and it actually turned out to be true. And Ramon Bollings, who's mentioned here, a very clever person who's in my community, the International Society for Innovation Management Professionals, put this in a book. So if you're interested, his book is from 2016. It's called Cross-Industry Innovation Principles Not Invented Here. So don't try to reinvent the wheel, just see who else has done it before and make it yours. And the 4 principles we've adopted in this inquiry process from the fitness industry were like have conversations, make associations, and I'll get into this a little bit more. Then the WWXD kind of approach, what would X do? Then another principle is this, select, copy, adapt, and paste. And at the end is the remixing process. Ramon Bollings actually calls himself an idea DJ. So he thinks his greatest strength is like taking something from space A and from space B and then remixing it into something new. The practices we adopted from more the general kind of innovation management community are creative inquiry and creativity inquiry, diverging, converging from the design thinking realm, and then some experimenting mindsets that will come later because we're sort of in the early stages of the project still when it gets to kind of validation of the outcomes. So some of our first findings are that first, the overall finding, sorry, the slides keep jumping around a little bit here. Okay, the overall finding is that there's a lot to be found in the fitness industry that can be imported for teaching excellence. And just as a general overview, you see here the 1, 2, 3, 4, 12 clusters that we've detected. So, and under each cluster, we have many practices that kind of would fit and could enhance teaching excellence. So some of them relate to ambience, some of them relate to intensity, and some of them relate to preparation before learning, and that's on the teacher's part, but also on the student's part. And I'll show some, if that's okay with you, I'll show some examples from that directly from our prototype that we've started to build in the last couple of weeks. Now, let me say something about the inquiry process. So where did I start this and how did I do this when I began it, like early on in the project? This have conversations, make associations, how did I approach it? Well, one of the people I had conversations with was simply my friend and fitness expert, Guy Carasillo from Dedham Health and Athletic Complex in Boston, where the place I also call home. And I interacted with him quite a lot. He taught my daughter in Kempo karate. I went to his Pilates classes, boxing classes, and all that kind of stuff. And over the years, we kind of saw a big overlap and had a lot of conversations about what a teacher in a business school could do to enhance their teaching excellence with fitness industry practices. And when I got a little bit more curious, I actually got a certification as an RPM instructor from Les Mills. Some of you may be familiar with that community. It's a fitness community. And the RPM certification is a cycling method, and I found even more. And those were kind of those are also two examples that we would use if we run into a problem and would ask ourselves, what would X do? So for example, if you run into something that keeps you up at night, as a teacher, you could simply look into neighboring industries. It could be nursing, that could be another neighboring space. It could be a flight instructor. It could be a driving instructor. And you could ask yourself, what would X do to solve this problem? And that's what we did in the inquiry process here. So let me just jump forward. So one piece here, I hope this video is starting. One piece that is very important is to be selective. I hope this video is starting. It's interactive. So our students have put this together because they love berries, and they love this particular fitness community. And if you look at it, there's nothing surprising here. There's the activity you see in group fitness, you see instructors, you see people, working hard on their fitness. The message here that I want to get across with this slide is that when you look into a neighboring space, you need to be selective, and that is part of this cross-industry innovation approach. Not everything is importable, and you need to be careful, and you need to be very selective with what you're picking. Okay, and some of those, not all of those principles are importable for sure. Let me just forward here. At the beginning, when we started the journey, we went into a diverging exercise. Okay, sorry, I'm having some trouble with the slides. Am I doing this?
Yes, you are. So if you just click in the right-hand corner of the slide, as opposed to using those arrows, it might be much easier for you to manage. Yeah, just there.
I'm sorry.
All good. All good.
Now I'm not doing anything.
All right. Why don't you just allow me? I'll take over.
Yeah, please.
I will not. All right, let's try that again. Just give me 1 sec.
Okay.
Jump ahead.
That was the one. Okay, are we ready?
Yes, we're ready. Why don't I try to progress the slides for the rest of your talk?
Thank you so much. And there's only one more after this, and then we'll jump into the prototype. I'll share that from my screen if that's okay.
Tom.
Okay, good. So this is just an example for how we went about the diverging and converging part. So at the beginning, we as a team, the 5 of us, kind of brought in all of our personal thoughts in a so-called 635 exercise. It's called a brain writing exercise, to get as many potential ideas on what kind of practices from our own experiences, from our conversations and associations kind of could be used. And that does quite a lot. So this is, you need to be selective about it, like I said, and we did that with a design thinking method called the How, Now, Wow, and Chow grid, organized the ideas by originality and feasibility, and then build clusters from there. And the clusters, I can show some of the clusters. If I'm allowed to take over, I can show some of the clusters and some parts of the prototype quickly to give you an idea of what that looks like. Okay.
All right, you should be able to share now.
Yeah. So can you all see the prototype right now?
Yes.
Okay, great, great. So this is where you land if you, this is where you will land if you take advantage of the UNSW teaching toolkit. It will look something like this. It's an early prototype. And then you'll see those clusters here. And let's just, for giggles, let's just click on ambience here. And what you see is then a description, and you see some summary about what ambience means, or what we mean by ambience, like using ambience kind of features from the fitness industry to enhance your teaching. And one example, low-hanging fruit that the fitness industry people use is bring your enemies. And of course, some of you may do this. If you do it already, just take it as, hey, as a confirmation. If you don't, take it as an inspiration. So what I'm saying is, like, we're not claiming that everybody will find everything new, but we're pretty sure that a lot of people will find a lot of new stuff on this tool. So bring your enemies is a very common practice in the fitness industry. It's basically people saying what they find hard, what kind of exercises they have problems with, and then the instructor helping them specifically with how to tackle those problems. This could be specifically helpful in highly advanced kind of teaching, bringing it to our postgrad theme, PhD level kind of teaching classes, long classes, and it's applicable throughout the course. It's applicable in face-to-face, online, and asynchronous. Another practice, we could look at intensity level here. So another practice there from the fitness industry that you might find useful is what we call controlled disturbance. So we call the exercise associated with that the viper pit. So while a learner is demonstrating something in the room as part of, in a classroom, as part of the exercise, as part of the learning experience, you could disturb them. And we have like a mini example here where we would deliberately disturb someone who's computing and comparing a DuPont ratios of two competing companies with a phone call, with a text, and with signing an expense report to simulate kind of real life disturbances that someone would have in a business setting. Another one, if I scroll down here, is also a very common practice. If anybody in the room has done yoga or Pilates before, they know that once you go into a yoga class or into a Pilates class, the teacher will always offer you to do the exercises at different levels. So you could do a side plank as shown here on your knees. You could do it with your feet extended. You could do it with your arms extended. And then if you're really hardcore, you could raise your leg while doing it. And a teacher could use this practice by, simply offering each exercise in a simple level, in an intermediate level, and into an advanced level. This is also suitable for face-to-face, online, or asynchronous modes. And you can use that and combine that and synergize there with a practice from the fitness industry that's like progressive loading. So if someone started on their knees, metaphorically, you could coach them through bringing them to this level here, where they're able to, again, metaphorically raise all their limbs while they're doing this side plank. And in the name of time and for the sake of time, I'm going to leave it there. We have many more, but maybe leave some room to breathe and leave some room to have a conversation about this, and let us all know what you think, and if you have any questions.
Thank you so much, Dirk. That was great. I'm always at the level 1. What can I say? I always like easy way out. And my Pilates teacher always is unhappy with me. I'll just get you maybe just to stop sharing so we can get ready for a person who will be presenting next. But are there any questions for Dirk at the moment? I think there are a lot of kind of very positive comments. And I'll get you to maybe have a look at them. So zone of proximal development, so, going towards the levels that you were suggesting about training of students. But any questions, burning questions? Oh, yes, David's back on floor, so he's got more questions.
I kind of expected that.
Hi, Dirk. Thanks for your presentation.
Hi, Dave. Yeah, thank you.
It's great to see it being realized now after sort of hearing about it earlier in the year. The question I have around the toolkit, do you see how discrete are some of those elements, or do you see or do you feel that there could be ways in which they kind of interact with each other that you'd sort of recommend, not just doing sort of pick and choose sort of individual ones, but maybe sort of combinations of them? Or is that not part of the scope of?
So I was hoping for that question. Thank you, David. This is not scripted, but David's giving me an excellent segue to mention something else. So as a next level of this tool, for example, we're hoping to put some analytics into the toolkit. So one feature could be, I used it, simple yes, no. I recommend it, button, thumbs up, and or not. And the third one could be, I remixed it, and how, So these are things that are on our radar, in our minds, that we could use. So one thing that I've mentioned is, for example, the customized loading goes really well together with the progressive loading, and in the true spirit of cross-industry innovation, like remixing is encouraged. So absolutely, yes.
All right, thanks, Dirk. I'll see you on Wednesday.
Yeah, see you on Wednesday.
All right. Any other questions? I'm just conscious of just falling a little bit more behind time, so maybe I'll pause the questions here, and if there are any, just pop them in a chat, and I'm sure Dirk will be obliging and answering them in there.
Yeah, of course. I mean, like the conversation has started, so reach out to me if you have any questions, any suggestions.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. We are getting to the pointy end of this session, so the very last presentation for the day. So our next presenter is Dr. Tom Townsend, definitely not related at all. He will be talking about the UNSW online students. So obviously we had already a lot of UNSW online presentations today, so you guys are getting a whirlwind story of UNSW online today. Now, did you have a preference for which microphone? There was a lot of feedback on it.
Sure. Look at that, I get special treatment. Do you see that? Okay, so probably I'll try not to recover any ground that was already done from Wiley's talk and Helen's talk in particular, but I want to fill a few gaps, and I will cover a little bit of I suppose the same ground that has been covered a little bit, because I want to do is put a focus on our students and how we use them. So the things that I want to talk about today are a little bit about the UNSW online context that I teach within, how we do that teaching. I want to talk a little bit about the HEC semesters, because that's important, about how we engage with our students that we bring back into the program. And then I want to talk specifically about the students, both in general and a specific cohort of students and graduates that we're bringing back into the program. So I might not spend too much time on this slide. I might come back to that in a minute, because some of that was already covered previously. What I want to talk about in general is what we know about the adult learners that are inside the UNSW online programs. So they need flexibility. So these students, as we said, are working full-time mostly. They have families. They're all mid-30s or older. They're all people that I would consider my peers for the vast majority of it. And they need to be able to squeeze all the work that they're doing and the study they're doing amongst in their very, very busy lives. So flexibility is super important, and so is that asynchronicity. They need things to be immediately relevant. They're all working. The best advice or the best bit of feedback I get from my students is when they can take a concept they learn, they can literally walk in within those little 6-week teaching periods that we have, try it at work, come back before the class is finished, and actually provide us with immediate kind of feedback to them and their peers in the class on how they're working and how that was able to be used in their real work. They're willing and able to take responsibility for their own learning. They respond better to intrinsic rather than external influences and motivations, and they love when things are problem-based. So that's in general. And when I was preparing for this, I've got a few little profiles at the end about some of the students that I actually have as well. And as I was showing them the deck for this, I asked each and every single person, does this resonate with you? And all 5 of them said, yes, absolutely. This is true for them across the board. So I think this is a really good capturing of the kind of students that we have. So the program that I'm responsible for, so you understand my context a little bit, is the Master of Cybersecurity. I won't read you this slide. These slides will be available to you after. I want to spend time on my students at the end. But what I'll do is jump forward to this one, which is a trimming down of the data that we had in the previous slide, and then some of the data that Wiley presented earlier. So to give you an idea, our students are from all around the country. They're predominantly domestic. There's very, very few internationals in the program. And the thing that I want to draw your attention to specifically, though it's been mentioned in a few different contexts, is the age of the students that we have through. And the reason I want to focus on that is because they all have fantastic experience that is really important for us to draw down on and to tap into, both from a peer learning perspective, so having students interact with other students that they were learning with in that moment, but also trying to find ways to bring them back and participate in the teaching afterwards, which is something that I'm doing. I want to take a slight little diversion into how we teach for just a moment and talk about the carousel and the hex semesters from a delivery perspective. So they've been mentioned from a design perspective, so you know that they're 6 weeks, they're tops and tailed with an O week and some finalisation. And they are scattered all over the different periods of the year, and some of them quite often run at different cadences. So you get this idea of different carousels running at different speeds, and everybody, students and staff, like whipping round and round and around. So as they come into the program, they do their core units, they then run around their specialisation courses and any electives they might need to do, and then when they're ready to jump off, they do one final whip around the capstone course and fly out the other end as a graduate. So that's a lovely way to visualise it. I really like that slide. So to touch on a few things that have already been said, all asynchronous, all contact is optional, everything's online. Everything can be accessed from day one. It's a full course in 6 weeks. It's not trimmed down. We're not doing 3 unit of credit courses or anything in 6 weeks periods. Everything is there, assessments included. Students spend 20-25 hours a week at it, and it's all in serial. So you've got razor sharp focus from each of the students and their peers in each class, working on a single problem at a time. I wanted to visualize it for you, because when all you guys are sitting around going, oh yeah, I've finished my marking, my exams are done, I'm pretty good, I'm going off and doing something else now, I'm having a break, I'm catching up on my resource, I'm doing that. And so are all the other people that are working on the hex semesters as well. One of the things that's really complex about delivering these is that the turnaround on feedback and grading is really, really tight. So 10 business days or 14 calendar days. For the rest of the uni, we do 7. So when you take into account, so for me, running a course, I have to model how I want my markers to mark. I do a heavy amount of feedback, which means I need to do that before they get started. Then they've got a few days to do their marking themselves. Then we meet and moderate, make sure that we're all on the same page, then clean things up, then upload all the feedback. That all has to happen within 7 days for every assessment. Like I said, there's no concessions. We're not doing less assessment in 6 weeks. So one of the things that's really cool then as an idea of engaging with all this wonderful experience that our students have, both when they're in the class and when they pop out the other end as graduates, is finding a way to re-engage them and bringing them into the course because they understand this context. They've lived it from the student perspective. And now when I can bring them in as markers and as teachers after they've graduated, they understand that part of the context and they understand the subject matter expertise. They probably had a whole heap of expertise to begin with, like you'll see in a few minutes. So it's really easy then to tap into that amazing depth of experience and help them support me as the person running a course to do the teaching. Tiny bit of context about the school that I'm from as well. It's called the Canberra School of Professional Studies. We're super new, we're super small, and unlike a lot of the other teaching areas, we don't have a wealth of HDR students to tap into for our markers, so we beg, borrow and steal from other faculties and schools around. So starting to do this has been really good. So in the cohort of students you're about to meet, there's 5 of them. I have had people that they're all been markers, or 5 of them have been markers. One of them has been doing course development, and another one's, 3 of them have been student facing in their teaching activities, and one of them is now running their entire, you're regretting giving me this now, aren't you? Yeah. And one of them is leading and teaching as the lecturer for their first HEC semester this time round, which is fantastic. So I'm not going to read you all this. So what I did is I sent everybody a little survey, and then I curated what they sent back to me and parroted back to them so they know what's going up on the slides. So I'll leave that there for you to read little bits and pieces if you like. What I want to do is just tell a little anecdote about each student so you can see kind of how we're using them and some of the, I suppose, a little side of graduate outcomes for you all for some of this. So Michael graduated a little while ago with distinctions from our master program, which is really exciting. During the course, one of the courses that we run, which is all about strategy development, cyber strategy writing, essentially, he, in his actual organisation, sat down and wrote the cyber strategy for his own organisation. So I have this little thing which I like to refer to as bring your work to class. So I let students work on their real workplace problems in my class. He did his strategy. He took it to work, he presented it to his board. He not only, after some negotiation, got the strategy endorsed, they created and promoted him into a new position. So now he is not only in a new position in his workplace, the cyber strategy is being implemented right now in the private school that he works for. He's just started his own business doing consulting. So that's pretty cool. And he's teaching for me right now. Yeah. Julie's now teaching into 2 different courses that we run as a marker. One of them is student facing. She had 20 years of experience working on projects bigger than I can even imagine, huge energy sector projects, and she's trying to focus and narrow in on that cyber security perspective, and she has succeeded in doing that just recently. And 2 weeks ago, she seen me and I was going, I'm just going home and going back to sleep. I can't, I'm so exhausted, starting a new job. So she's just started a big new job in this area, partly on the back of this experience, which is great. The next person I'll get you to meet is Garen. So Garen is he did early retirement from the New South Wales Police Department as a cybercrime detective. He did this degree to start to branch out and do a different type of work. He's now been consulting after graduating from this program. He's got clients in the US and in the UK and here in Australia. He's developed a short course on behalf of UNSW, and he's currently a lecturer now for us in HEC semester 6 for the first time for one of the courses directly in this program. So we're not only tapping in, I think both Michael and Garen probably the best 2 examples of people that brought a lot of good experience to the program, engaged really well inside the courses that they were running in, and now they're bringing that experience back in, and we're tapping into that as they're teaching, which is fantastic. Warren has a not too dissimilar story than Garen. He was also a police detective, so I've got to be on my best behaviour when I'm teaching these students, make sure I don't do anything too outside the bounds of our policies. And on the back of finishing this degree, he is now the Director of Major Investigations for OAIC, doing nothing but cyber investigations, which is pretty fantastic. He's also just started marking for us. He's now working for Garen, his ex-peer, as a student, which is fantastic. And I'm looking forward to engaging him with some graduate certificate development work specifically in this compliance and regulation space, seeing that's his expertise. And last but not least, I introduced you to Joey. Joey is a CFO and CIO in a small ACT government department here in town. While he didn't change roles as a result of this degree, he has been able to, or in his words, get great benefit out of the learning he had and be able to focus in on that cyber perspective of the CIO ownership and role that he has in his day job. He's just started marking for me now HEC semester 6 for the first time. and enjoying it. And the other thing that Joey's doing, so in the capstone course that I run, which is running right now, we're not done, all you people that have finished your exams. I don't like you right now. But we run this fantastic role play where we simulate a company and there's different people involved in the course that the students get to interact with, and Joey's playing the role of the CEO in that scenario, in that simulation, and is loving it. So that's it. I hope that's a nice little cap off of everything else that we've done today. We've had a lot of UNSW online focused stuff, but I think that's a nice tie of the bow, finishing on what our students are doing. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. All right, so there are no questions in the chat yet, but that was a great demonstration of what our students are like, who they are, and obviously a lot of them are coming to us with loads of expertise behind them, so we really need to make sure that our postgraduate courses are actually delivering the development that those people actually need. Any questions for Tom? I would allow 1, 2 maybe. All right, we got 1.
Spike here. Thanks, Tom. They sound fantastic, the students that have transformed into educators like us. Can you codify the criteria by which you determine the suitable students?
So it's a little bit gut driven, to be honest. So the way that I've been doing it is I've been reaching out to the highest performing students who have either explicitly expressed some kind of interest in doing more, coming back and participating more fully. But I do cast a fairly wide net and see the kind of people I get, and then I'll run a normal kind of process that you would when you're trying to engage with somebody new. So if they do want to, even if I've taught them personally multiple times, if they do show some interest, I'll still ask for them for their CV and have a little faux kind of low-key interview with them, either online or in person, and make sure that they've got the right kind of qualities. But as I kind of stressed halfway through, this is a really intensive delivery format, and having them lived it from the other side has been super valuable in having them transition to deliver it as well.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. I think this is a very powerful model for us. Thanks.
Thank you.
There are some comments online, obviously, people commenting that it's a great kind of way to wrap up the session, especially focusing on students at the end. So what we might do is we might finish off here. So thank you very much for your presentation, Tom. I decided that 2 microphones would be required. All right, so this concludes our event. Before we go, I would like to thank our presenters. Without them, this event would not be possible. So please join me one more time to thank our presenters for their time and invaluable insights that they've shared with us today. Next, I would like to thank you, the audience. Thank you for your time and a very rich engagement with our event. We truly hope that you have enjoyed the program. Bhavani will be posting in the chat information about the next event, as well as the feedback survey link that we would love you to complete. So let us know how we did and what we can do better. Finally, I would like to thank everyone behind the scenes who has made this event possible. My own team here, which there are many people in the room, and specifically a shout out to Emily and Bhavani, whose calm nature have held me calm and not messy today. To our faculty representatives that have been working with, that I've actually had a privilege to work with over the last few months on putting together this amazing week-long event. We meet very regularly, and every single faculty representative has worked very hard on putting together this event. And last but not least, the one and only PVC-SE engagement team for everything that you do and will do this week
and you have done up until this point. Thank you all. We hope that you enjoyed the rest of UNSW Education Festival.